Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Hi, everybody. So, do I look pixelated? Am I lots and lots of pixelated? I can't tell, because sometimes it's a little different for me than it is for you. But I will work on that here in just a minute. Apologize for being late. Totally my fault. And I love y'all. And I'm so glad to be here tonight. So, here we are. Night 3. Amy! Hi, sweetie. Sapphire Elf, how you doing? Chris Jarvis. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Blue Crossroads. Jamie Bailey. Glenn Dannison. Hello, hello, hello. I am so glad. Mermaid, my beautiful mermaid. I love you so much, darling. One of my wonderful, wonderful mods. Lindsay. Lindsay. Does it look good? Because it's so pixelated here. We're having storms and everything else. If you are in the storms, please do not watch me. Please watch Brian Hall, y'all, on YouTube. He is one of the best weather people. He has got a fantastic staff, and I guarantee you, if there's trouble coming, and thank you, Sapphire Elf, folks, back to you, baby. And all the bacon, just, you know, plenty of bacon for everybody, plenty, spread the love. So anyway, Ryan Hall, y'all, on YouTube is totally free. He's got wonderful people helping him out. This young man named Andy, who is smarter than most meteorologists I know, and I know a few. But it's amazing, and a lot of times they will get out the warning before you sirens even go off. Hello, Anna Edna. And being that the fact that I lived in Alabama, I take tornadoes and things like that, and you know, baseball size hail and stuff, very serious. My car still has dings on it from the hail that hit us the day the sky turned green, I call it. But we had 11 tornadoes in one day. So Tornado Alley earned its name. So I take them very seriously. So if you are in an area that has storms tonight and you're not sure what's coming, please go on over there to Ryan Hall, y'all. Pick up, you know, a good idea of what, you know, what's going on with all his radar and everything else. Subscribe to him. He's great. He's in Kentucky, but he covers everything. And I'll tell you what, that team over there is really saving lives. So please, that's your first priority, is be safe. Okay, now this is night 3 on Amityville, and we've got some stories to tell. So without further ado, please let me bring on my co-host for this evening, someone who has really dug into the research, really stepped up to the plate here, and I couldn't be more proud of him as far as the amazing stuff he has come up with and the way we've decided to do this. And I'm so glad he's with me tonight. Let's bring on Donny Cho. Hello, Donny. How you doing, love?
Hi. Good.
Okay.
Maybe that was a very kind intro. I was so flattered.
Well, it's true. You know, the thing is I was extremely sick, still moving through it. There's a lot of reasons for that, but you know, up and down, and then bam, and you know, like I said, I slept for 3 days. I didn't even drink coffee. I can't even explain it to you. And it hit me hard. And I told Donnie, I said, I don't even know what day it is. And, you know, he picked up the ball. He read that book. Did you bring the book with you?
Yep, I have it right
Okay. Here. So what Donnie did, if you've missed the last 2, is Donnie has read Rick Osuna. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Donnie?
Osuna, I think.
Osuna. And he wrote a book called The Night the DeFeos Died. And it had, I mean, the amount of research that this young man's done. Now, I've heard him call a fraud. I've heard him called a charlatan. I've heard him called, you know, everything under the sun. I don't know the man. You know, there's so many people here that have been involved in this case over like the past 40-something years that, you know, they gave their opinion and they wrote a book. Okay? And that pretty much goes for everybody. So I don't know how many books there are on Amityville that even attempt to be serious. Would you know, Donnie?
I mean, I could probably look it up, but it's probably a lot of books.
I would say
a lot of books.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
It's probably not close to the JFK assassination, but there's like 400 and something books written on the JFK assassination that are worth reading. That's not like, all your just junk books, or we've got one new little thing that we're going to make up so we can get it published. These are books like High Hopes, written by the prosecutor, that some people who understand the case have read that book and said, it's pretty good, but you got this part, and then you've got another book and you've got this part. So the way I look at it is, more than likely there's a little bit of truth in all of them, covered with a lot of opinion, and then there's some that are just made up out of a whole cloth, just right out of the air. Let me explain why this happened, or why this happened, or I think this happened. So what Donny and I have done, and Steve and Sandy too, they were definitely in on the excitement of it. But it's mostly been Donny and I digging. Now, the first one we did, if you had missed it, introduced you to the DeFeo family and all the different connections, so you can decide. Do you think that, somebody else did it? Do you think it was possibly, all these rumors, like a mob hit or this or that? And I'm going to say, in my opinion, from what I know now, I don't think so. I think that they would have took him out at the dealership, or took him out in Brooklyn, or if they knew he was stealing. I'm saying, I think if this murder hadn't happened, somebody was going to die anyway along the lines. The shame of it all was that innocent people like these children had to be brought into this. You must say that from Allison down, these are just poor kids that were caught up, probably had a horrible home life to begin with all the abuse and everything else that was going on there, right? And that's just where I'm sitting. Donny, how about you? That's basically where you're sitting too, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm sitting as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So we established that there was lots of different angles, and we even talked in depth about, would mob kill kids? Would this happen? Would that happen? Keep in mind, the two heads of this family, who was Louise's father, was Mike Brigante, all right? Definitely involved in there somewhere. Couldn't tell you if he was a made man, don't know. But that Buick dealership was definitely a front for a lot of things, okay? And on the other side, you had Rocco DeFeo. Do you really think that either one of them would okay to have those kids hit?
No.
I don't. So that being said, that's where we are there. Now, because we are going through The Night the DeFeos Died, the book, and Donny has read that. And I took the other end of it, and I did the Shattered Hopes and Uncommon Belief. If you're listening, if you wouldn't drop that link, I would appreciate that. Shattered Hopes has here it comes with that name again. I just looked at it and I've forgotten it already. Ryan Krackenhammer. If you say Kevin Bacon,
I was about to say Kevin Bacon.
I know you were going to say Kevin Bacon. Hassel. Oh, shoot. Just drop that link and you guys figure out what his last name is. God, I might mean him no disrespect, but I have this block on names sometimes, and as soon as I try to think of it, I can't. So it's definitely not Benedict Cumberbatch. It's not him.
No.
Ryan Krackenborough. That was there we go. There it is right there. Thank you, Uncommon Belief. It is called Shattered Hopes. Now, I'm making light of it because I have this abnormality where I can't remember names. But it's a fantastic series, I believe. And it is in 3 parts. It is free on YouTube. And a bonus underneath that is a 2-hour interview with Butch DeFeo from prison. It was one of the last interviews that he granted. He also granted one to Rick Osana. And right after, I think Rick said that he sat with him about 6-7 hours and did an interview with him. After the fact, Butch called Geraldine, who was the lady that we said that was married to him at the time, back and forth on that again. I've never seen anything to dispel her. I have seen things on a YouTube channel that says that they think she was a fraud and this and that. Krackenhammer? Release Krackenhammer. If it's not Krackenhammer, it should be. But let me tell you something that Rick said in another interview. I don't know if he stated it in the book. After that interview, Butch called Geraldine and said that he wanted to sue Rick because he could get more money, and he wanted her to help him do so. She declined. He also said that she declined all monies and anything else, which I think gives her an awful lot of credibility in my book.
Yeah.
That's really all I can say. I don't know her from Adam, and I wasn't there. So there's a few little things back and forth that, kind of pinpoint for me certain things. And like I had mentioned about the dog barking at 3:15. There's an animal that beneficial cummerbund. That's close, Jose. That's close. And thank you, Aunt Edna. Yes, please hit that thumbs up because we are, I believe, very close to 2,000 subs. So if you could share this out, we so appreciate it. I know we're an acquired taste because I'm so past the BS, I'm just going to tell the truth as I see it. And then the week after, if I find out I was wrong, I do something that's really weird. I come back and go, guess what? I was wrong. I found out more information and I was mistaken. Here's what I have. Help me figure this out. Because if we can't do that in the paranormal after all this time, we're not going to get anywhere. You know what I mean? And we've got to weed out the BS. Because again, I'll say it again. I think truth is stranger than fiction. And what annoys me about this whole thing is the truth is good enough. You don't have to embellish it. You don't have to add to it because we cannot learn. We cannot move forward if you keep changing it. Am I right, Donnie?
Yeah.
And I just want to get that down. If it's something that I can leave to not puberty. What's the word I'm looking for? If there's something
posterity.
Okay, there we go. If I could leave that in my wake, fantastic, just like my book. And I said it in the book, I said it in the beginning, I said it in the end. I don't know everything. This is where I'm at right now. This is what happened to me. This is what it sounded like. It's what it smelled like. I don't remember what happened here. I'm not going to make anything up to fill the gap. I'm just going to jump and say I don't remember because it's the truth.
And on that
Go
notion,
ahead.
I have to make a correction about something I said in the last episode.
Sure, go right ahead.
I was talking about Hans Holzer, and I said that he got the Native American tribe wrong in Long Island. And
Okay.
he said it was a Shinnecock when it was actually a Lenape. But then I actually went back and read that section. I was like, oh wait, no, it was the Warrens who said that, not Hans Holzer.
See, there you
So
go.
I made a mistake.
We make mistakes and then we fix it.
Yeah.
Because it happens. And, I cannot tell you the amount of, people that just let it go. It's like, I know everything and, I'm not going to ever correct myself. That doesn't show character to me. People make mistakes and people get stuff wrong, and you should be able to come back and say it just like we just did. So there you go.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to call me out on something, that's fine. We'll check it, research it, bring it back. That's fine. So the thing is this. I have been digging in this now for, I think, about 8 weeks straight with a brief time where I was basically comatose. I don't mean that as a joke. I mean, I didn't even know what day it was.
Yeah.
And I had to take a break from it for a little while and really do like a spiritual cleanse and I'm not joking. I had to do the Archangel Michael shielding and clearing. I had to do all that stuff because this is really dark crap. And the darkest part was getting through the DeFeo murders. Because that's just, and it sickens me that people have exploited these poor people. And I really, really appreciate the wonderful comments that you guys have put under the YouTube episodes, that you told me that it was respectful and it was deep research, very thorough. And I can't tell you how much Donnie and I appreciate that, because this is a lot of time. It's a lot of digging. It's a lot of looking up pictures and watching this and trying to, what did they say? And did that match to this? But if we don't do it right this time, what's the point? So we're really, really trying. And again, we might get something
I have to
wrong,
add
but go ahead.
doing all this reading and finding about Amityville, because I didn't know much about the case before I started doing this. Just reading it. I mean, it wasn't, at the same time, it wasn't a chore. Like, I actually Thought it was
Yeah.
like kind of like a fun hobby, and then we get to talk about it. I mean, I had a blast reading this. I was
It's
very interested.
it's very interesting, and I thought it was a really good. I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking for something so dark in here. I really thought it was an interesting take on it because Donnie didn't know that much about it going in, and I thought, what a fresh eyes, fresh mind, fresh look at the whole thing. Now, Donnie, since then you have read the book several times.
Yeah.
I know you even went over another chapter right before we came on, just to
Just to kind of loosen up,
freshen it up. Yeah. And he also watched about half of the original Amityville Horror movie, the original.
Yeah, but I stopped watching it because it got a little too scary, and I'm a bit of a puss when it comes to horror movies. I'm a real puss when it comes to horror movies.
He said it's too scary. It was like late at night, and he said, "What do you want me to do for this week?" I said, "I think we're pretty much caught up, blah blah blah." We were talking about what parts we were going to take and where we were going to go, and then I said, "You know what? The easiest thing you could do if you've never seen it is just watch the original movie, the one with Margot Kidder and James Brolin and Kevin Bacon, right? No, Kevin Bacon's.
Kevin Bacon's in everything.
We just love Kevin Bacon because we like his name, because it goes with all the bacon, bacon love that we have out here, and he would probably enjoy that as well. He would probably laugh, But and it's weird, and like I said in the beginning of this, I don't even want to talk about the other movies because to me they're all absolute garbage.
I wanted to watch the second one because I wanted to see how they were exploiting Native Americans, because you mentioned that in the second one. I wanted to see how bad it was.
Now, that's the remake that was done, I think, in 2005, somewhere around in there. That was the second. That's the remake of the original.
That's the one that exploited Native Americans like real bad?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And what
I'm surprised I didn't get any angry letters.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But Glenn Davis says, spoiler, Donnie, they left the house. 28 days.
Oh, no, spoiler alert.
But it was so funny because it was kind of late at night, and we were texting back and forth, and I said, just watch the movie. And he said, well, is it scary? And I said, 1970s scary. It's, it had been a long time since I seen it. It's not like I watch it all the time. I think I saw it last time in 1978. I really do. I might have caught pieces of it here and there, but it wasn't something I was thrilled with. I saw it in the theater originally when it came out, and I was somewhat disappointed because I'm real big that if you don't follow the book, I know Hollywood got their little grubby hands in there and changed things. I'm more of a stickler. Like, if it's a true story, don't change it. And I was still, like I said, I was still a kid, basically. I was in high school. So even then, it's just one of those things. If it's, people didn't get his butt hurt back then. That's true, Blue Cross.
But Cisco, actually, when you said that it was like 1970s scary, do you know what I started thinking? Honestly, I was like, but wait a minute, Exorcist was done in the 70s. That movie was scary as shit.
Yeah.
I was like, is it going to be that level of scary? Oh, no.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, wait, The Shining was in the 70s. That movie was scary as hell.
I just have a different level. Yeah. I look at stuff like, see, now that doesn't get me as much. I look in there and I look for the truth. I look for the BS. It's like, okay, that's not going to happen. That's just totally exploiting this entire genre. And that's what gets me. It's just leave it as is because, like I said, the truth is stranger than fiction. The thing that got me, like I said to Zariah that night, was the reach. When I was the kid reading in the book, I was like, oh my God, the reach. It's following here and here and here. Well, then if you watch something like Denzel Washington in Fallen, it's very real. It's just jump from the one to the other. But you'll notice that it skips some people. Why does it skip people? Why isn't it jumping in everybody? Because it can't. There is a block on certain people. So it's jumping in just like jumpers, like I told you about the jumpers at the bar. It would go down and test people, almost like push on the backs of people and go like, nope, and move to the next one and nope. And just like, you know what I mean? And go on down that way. and until it found something it could into and take over for a minute. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And that made me start digging and go, well, what's stopping it? I want to know that. So that's how that, that part of my mind works and goes. Yeah, don't forget the bacon. And so now that we've said all that, and tonight we are moving into the actual horror part of, the paranormal.
The
horror
gnarly
part.
stuff.
Right. And we've got a couple vids for you. I found a wonderful documentary that pretty much covers it, and I really like the way it was done. You're going to see some names that you recognize from the last episodes, like some of the journalists I said that have held their integrity throughout this whole thing in 50 years. That's a hard thing to do. And that would be Laura DeFeo and Joel. It would be, what was his last name again? I'm sorry, I've forgotten. But it's Joel.
Was it Martin? Was it?
Yes, I believe so.
Martin,
Joel Martin. And then you've got that one parapsychologist. You're going to see him in this. And then you've got a couple of newcomers that are going to come in tonight that Donnie and I wanted to introduce you to before you saw them in the documentary. And I believe they're in the book as well, Donnie. So
see, the thing is, I wasn't as familiar with her because I do remember her being mentioned in the book, but I think it was only like one line or something.
who you mean Laura or the others?
The others. They were like barely
Kaplan.
mentioned.
The
Yeah.
Kaplans,
Yeah.
right. And Leonard Nimoy, yes, Glenn Davidson. And also, what I wanted to do, depending on how deep the conversation gets tonight, for those of you that are new that did not get to see it, about 6 weeks ago, we first introduced doing this, and we did the In Search Of, the Amityville In Search Of. It's about 20 minutes long. I am going to play that at the end, because I'll tell you why. I think that if you've sat with us through night 1 and night 2, you may look at the In Search Of differently now and see different things. You see what I'm saying? So if we have time and it looks like it's it's going to work out, we can play that. If not, I'll play it again tomorrow night. Now, announcement about tomorrow night before we get started, Don. Steve may not be with us tomorrow night because he is dealing with some deep technical revamping, and I'm so excited for him. It's going to be wonderful. His whole world's going to open up. He's going to be able to do so many other things with the Missing Persons podcast, with his own, with him and Sandy's new thing that they're doing. So we are going to give him that time. If he can't be here tomorrow night, we will be disappointed, but know that he is doing stuff that's going to really be exciting for the future, and I wish him nothing but love, and go get him, baby.
Steve Stockton is a very busy man with many pots on the fire, as they say.
But it's good.
What's the expression? Many
irons in the
things
fire.
In the oven. Yeah, many irons in the fire.
He does not have a bun in the oven. We can't.
No bun in the oven.
Like
no, nothing like that.
Steve is not. No, there's no buns. There's no buns. There may be something in the oven, but it's not a bun. So all
the only bun Steve Stockton has is the one that he sits on.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we just wish him all the luck, and I don't want you guys to be disappointed if you don't see him on the Monday thing, because I won't put him on as Monday Madness, because I don't want his fans to come in or expect to see Steve and thinking I'm using him for clickbait, because I would never use a friend that way. I'm just telling you that, ahead of time. Okay?
Yeah.
So you get me, you get Donnie. And some really good research. So there's that. So I love you all. I want to say hi to everybody. Donnie, holler out whoever. We got Glenn. We got
a very
Stephen
special
Lewis.
hello
Welcome.
To Stephen Lewis.
Stephen Lewis, he says he's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
He's an awesome guy.
Everybody in here is just wonderful.
Yeah, Stephen Lewis is a good
yeah,
dude.
There you go. There you go. Ann Palmer. Hello, Lindsay. I love you so much. How's your toe, darling? Did you soak that sucker in Jack Daniels? I think
I saw that picture online. That looked bad.
She broke her toe.
That looked bad. I was like,
oh my gosh.
No.
I hope you kick some serious butt, honey. You beat me to it, Cisco. What did I beat you to, honey?
Hello, Monica.
Hello, Ann Palmer.
Hello, Vixen Doe.
Hello, Caillou. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Monica, hello. And Edna, I love you so much, darling. My thoughts and my love go out to you. I know you've had a very rough week. I love you, sweetheart. And, you know, we just look at it different because we know it's just a matter of time before your arms will be wrapped around your friend again, I promise, you know? But let's not make that, you know, too fast. You stay with us. Okay, because we love you. Vixen Doe, I love you, sweetie. How you doing? All my wonderful mods. And for all the new people in here, do not worry if you see zombies run over the wall and try to attack our chat, because we have Black Ops mods in here that will bake up the quickest batch of shut the fuck up cakes you have ever seen, fresh out of the oven. And I will tell you, they are fast and furious, and it's just, there's none better in YouTube. We have some of the best mods. They welcome everybody. They'll answer questions. So if any of you guys have any questions about stuff you may have missed from the other 2 episodes, they'll answer, help guide you through. They're absolutely fantastic mods. They drop in links, and they're always here with the bacon and the love and kindness, and that's what our chat is about. We are all here to learn. We're learning together. And my beautiful Mairead, how you doing, sweetie? And I know everybody's hot. It is so hot here. You don't even need an oven. You could just biscuits.
I'm in North Carolina right now, and it is, as the kids say, hot as balls here. Well,
all the cool kids are saying that, huh?
Hot as balls.
All
What
right.
I've been hearing all weekend.
Well, it is. It's really hot,
Yeah.
and most of my people have been working outside all week, and it is very hot. And I'll tell you, please remember those that. Hello, Kevin. How you doing? I was told it's called fall autumn because it's the time of year and the devil and his angels fell from heaven. Oh, that's different. I hadn't heard that one. Had you? See, I'm telling you, every 5 minutes we learn something.
But
different.
why autumn?
I don't know. Wait a minute. I was told.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Has anybody ever heard that before? That's pretty cool.
I was sitting on the toilet, and I autumned off the toilet,
Saskatchewan
and they found me
contact.
on the bathroom floor.
Hotter than Satan's Speedo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to be able to make Vixen Doe. We got to get you a wrench, honey. Give me a few minutes. And if you don't have a wrench, and let me tell you this. Last weekend, I looked at the chat. For some reason, all of Ted's messages were missing. Like they had been taken down. I don't do that. My mods don't do that. The only reason they would do that is if somebody was being like rude to a guest or rude to another person in the chat or something along those lines. They don't even need me to tell them. You know, they'll give you a warning. And if you're just being belligerent or whatever, you know, this is filled with love, and you know, we're trying to educate each other and help each other through a lot of stuff, and we're trying to forget the crap of the day and just deal with you know, some possible demons or whatever the hell is going on here. Some bad ghosts, at least some really bad energy going on, you know, throughout this mess. Whether, even if the bad energy is just the lying and the backstabbing and the mudslinging and everything else, because that's evil too. You know, but let's see, what is it? And then they say, my daughter moved this weekend, hot as hell here. We all smelled the skunks at the end of the day, soaked with sweat, miserable.
Yep.
We all smelled like skunks. Okay. Well,
Yep.
yeah, that, you know, it's the way it is. But please remember those that are working outside. If you've got workers, I have a couple of people in the family that work outside in construction, and they've been doing it. Somebody's like almost 100 and something degrees.
Amy,
Remember the mechanics and stuff.
Amy, don't worry. Don't worry. Offending people is my job.
No offending here.
Yeah.
Donnie,
I
don't you make
have a
don't you
knack
make
for
it.
offending people.
But he's not. You know,
Yeah.
nobody offended anybody, Amy. What's going on?
Sometimes on purpose too.
Yeah, much love to everyone. We're all about some love here. You know?
Yeah. It's all good vibes up in here.
Because the good vibes and everything else, and all the love keeps out all this other, you know, crappy stuff. And that's just a fact, you know. So there's that. Anyway, let's get down to some business. So, if you remember correctly, and I may not, the place we left off on Monday night, and again, I'd like to apologize. Monday night, if you saw like my face looking like I was angry, I had the serious migraine like halfway through the show, and I was trying to finish, and I didn't want to dip out on you guys, and I just tried to hold on, because I'm telling you, this stuff has been just really a mess. So I apologize. I was not in my best, at the time, but that's the only thing that was going on. I wasn't upset at anybody, or I wasn't nothing. It's just, my gosh, my head, it felt like I was being stabbed in the eyes. It hurt so bad.
Yeah.
But we hung in there and we got through it. Because
honestly, I went back and watched that episode, and you look great, Cisco. You did good. You
did
hit
I
it
do
well.
good?
Yeah.
Did I fake it through?
I thought we killed it on Monday. I was like, oh man, I hope we can top that.
It was good? All
Yeah.
right.
Sapphire Elf is asking us a question.
What is the question, sweetheart?
Sorry if I missed when I asked the question, Cisco and Donnie. After all your research, is it your opinions or something supernatural happened? Or is it a hoax? Or perhaps a mix of strangeness, truth, and bending?
Yes. That's like, sweetie, this thing to me, and I'll say it again, I'll probably say it 10 more times before tomorrow night's over. This whole thing to me is like the paranormal JFK assassination. So if you ask Jim Mars, who I dearly love, and I got to speak to him and followed him for years, and everybody's got opinions back and forth on him, but what the Jim Mars I knew, if you asked him, did the CIA do it? Did the FBI do it? Did the Secret Service do it? Did Johnson do it? Did the mob do it? Did this do? And he would go, yes. Right there. That's the truth. So we're trying to get there, Sapphire. We're like going through and we're letting you guys decide. And at the end of every episode, we kind of say, yeah, God rest his soul. He's a dear, dear man. And that's kind of where we're sitting. Now, I got to tell you, when I started this, I'm like digging up all this stuff and I'm going, there's a hoax involved in here somewhere. But where's the hoax?
Yeah.
And there's the truth is in here somewhere. But where's that truth? So we had to go back and dig.
Also,
and we've been digging.
Can I give my own answer to that question?
You certainly can.
I don't think people should think of these things as mutually exclusive in so much that if it's paranormal, it doesn't mean that there was no hoax. Also, if it was a hoax, that doesn't mean that there was nothing paranormal.
Well
you can
said.
have something paranormal and there being a hoax. Like, people have a tendency to kind of very reductively consider things as mutually beneficial or in very binary terms, where if it's a hoax, so then there are no ghosts whatsoever, right? That's how a lot of people think. Or they say there were ghosts, so then everything that Lexa said was correct. Right?
Well, the big thing too, sweetie, and I agree 100% with you, but the big thing too was, if you remember last weekend, Monday, I played That's Incredible about the is it Crumleys, the Cromleys, I mean no disrespect, but names are
I just remember that guy's shirt.
Right. Yeah. And they're saying, look, the perfectly good window, there's been no, you can see all the old paint, this window never broke. Therefore, in the movie, when the window blew out, the famous eye windows, when they blew out, they made that up in the movie. And then people will look at that one fact and go, okay, well then the whole thing is made up. No, not true. It's just the window didn't blow. And even Danny, was it Danny? Danny and Chris are the two young Lutz boys who are now full-grown men. And I've listened to interviews with them, and he said the window never broke out. It just opened and closed and banged and did this. So, that's what his thing was. And he used to get in school all the time. Can you imagine what these kids went through? Growing up as a Lutz, come on. This was horrible for these kids. One was 9, one was 7 when they moved in, and the little girl, Missy, I think was 5.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong on that, please correct me. But that's off the top of my head. I believe I'm close. These children should have never had to go through this. But I think it didn't end when they left. When all this stuff started back, these children also have been exploited. Think about it. Think about it. Now, this is a terrible way to grow up. And according to, and I will have some of a little bits of their interviews tomorrow night, if I can get them. I think I can. But basically, they're saying as they grew up through school, and Chris, the younger one, never read the book, never knew any of this until the kids started telling him at school after the movie came out and everything else, and calling him a liar and saying it was a hoax. I mean, they had to go relive and go through whatever it was they went through, even worse in school and from the other people and stuff, and been exploited all the way through. And every time a new movie is made and they are portrayed, they're drugged through it again and again and again and again. So say what you want there. That's real, you know, and it really affects a child. And I'd like to say this, so I don't forget. This I know to be true, and mods and chat, you can back me up on this. I will tell you, this infuriates me to no end. If you are a bully, if you are an abusive parent, if you beat your children, and I mean I'm talking about somebody like this
Ron DeFeo
Senior. Yeah. And you do this, and you belittle and you malign and you put your own children down and you create that person, you are just as responsible for the deeds they do. It's like a ripple effect. You are not separated from it, because I'm using these two people as an example. Ron DeFeo and his son Butch. You cannot tell me the abuse that man went through. It's not an excuse, but it is a reality. He created him. He beat his mother. He beat his siblings in front of him. He belittled him. He berated him, and then he let him go.
And multiple
he went out
witnesses.
To the neighborhood. Absolutely.
Multiple witnesses.
And he went out in the neighborhood and became a bully.
Yeah.
And he would bully other people and weaker kids in school. And this is the chain of events you create. So I'm going to tell you, as I'm sitting here, there will be comeuppance on the other side for this. I deal with it all the time, and people coming back and having to fix what they did and what they caused. You don't get out of it because your hands weren't the hands that did this, in this case, pulling a trigger.
Yeah.
But you are just as responsible because your abuse broke that person. And in their survival, they became something else to survive. So don't think that you're out of it. If you're that kind of person, you better think again, because you're not just harming that person, but you are partially responsible for every person that person grows up to harm. Stop the cycle, the circle now. Get help. There's no excuse. You can reach out anonymously. You can make phone calls. You can go to a group. You can move the fuck out. But stop and do something to heal it.
Yeah.
Because you're just as responsible. And that's not me saying that. That's something that I have found out from speaking to those who have crossed over and come back. And dealing with people who have to go through a little bit more to come back and fix something that they did, or ask for forgiveness, or try to help that person through the problem. And I've heard it over and over and over again, and I know I'm not the only person here. Thank you. Break the cycle. I'm not the only person here who knows that. Now, I found when I was thinking this, and I was running it through my head, and I said, I shouldn't say that. And, you know what? Yes, I should. Somebody needs to say it. You know, you are part of it. If you are creating a monster, you're a monster too.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
Yep.
And you don't get to escape it. If you think you get to escape it, I want you to look up a young man named Daniel Brinkley. And he's the man who got hit with lightning 3 times, died 3 times, had 3 NDAs, and came back. And he will tell you, you are responsible for every act. Your ripples affect other people, so you are responsible for it. And if you don't know that, I'm not preaching. I'm telling you the truth. You can call it what you want to call it. This is fact. And if you think I'm wrong, you just wait. And when you get to the other side, you find out it's not me being right. It's just something that happens. You can come back. You're welcome to come back and we'll talk about it. But you'll be a ghost. And I'll be sitting here going, man, it's not too late. We can still help you.
Yeah.
But if you can do something now to make amends, even if it's something small, forgive somebody. Who said it? Was it, I want to get it right. I think it was Gandhi. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Who said hating someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So all that hate and everything else, try to let it go. Let it go. Take all those heavy things out of your pocket. Think of Marley. I don't mean Bob. It was Bob Marley, wasn't it? In Dickens' A Christmas Carol? It was Bob Marley, but I don't mean
No,
that
Bob Marley's the...
He's the singer. Here we go with names again. I'm just going to write names down and hold up cards because I can't remember.
What was that dude's name in the Christmas Carol now? It was Bob something. Was it like Bob
Marley.
Cratchit?
Marley's ghost. No, that's... Cratchit was the guy who worked for Scrooge. I'm talking about the first ghost. It was Bob Marley.
Oh, the first ghost. Oh,
Jacob Marley. Thank you, Laura. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hi,
Laura just comes
sweetheart.
out of the... drops down from the sky and gives the right answer.
Sky with Jacob. Thank you. Thank you, Froze. I appreciate it. Hi, Froze. How you doing, sweetie? Love you, Laura. Thank you, guys. So Jacob Marley, he comes in and goes, these are the chains I forged in life. You understand? Yeah. Heavy. Mankind was my business. All he cared about was money and power and everything else. Mankind is our business. Mm-hmm. Help each other. And like I said in the beginning, please remember those people that are working outside and the mechanics that are working over these hot engines in these places. Check on your neighbors. Take care of yourself. We can get through this. We'll get through it together, okay? 3 ghosts, 3 little birds, coincidence. It's probably not, honey. It's probably not a coincidence. But there you go. So that's the grandstanding part of the beginning, because I'll tell you, really done a lot of digging, and I don't mean just in this case, because all the things I've gone through this case, I mean, I've cried, I've prayed, I've sat, I hit my knees multiple times on this one, because some of the things that these people have been through, it's just been absolutely abhorrent. I mean, it's just, this thing just seemed to reach out and touch so many people in a bad way. Cratchit, what? Sebastian. Cratchit. Yeah, Cratchit was the, I know this story better than my own. Yeah, he was the guy, the nice guy that Scrooge took advantage of, and is the office guy who kept the books. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, don't be a monster, and try not to raise them. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. People break. And, when people start breaking, they come back with survival instincts, and that starts, growing other people just to survive. And we're supposed to raise our kids with love. These are our precious, precious gifts. And, I always to say with my kids, I mean, like, I got these perfect pedigree, beautiful babies. Now my job is to not screw that up. And if you do, everybody makes mistakes. You try to go back, but I don't think any of this would have happened if Ron wasn't such an abusive bastard.
Oh yeah, that much is very obvious.
And I don't know what his childhood was like. It could go back. It could have been, his dad or his grandfather or his mother. It just keeps going.
Actually, there was a very interesting anecdote I saw in the book where they kind of peer into Ron DeFeo's psychology. Yeah. And Butch was relaying the story to Rick Asuna about how, like, Ron was physically abusive with just about anyone and everyone, right? He even witnessed Ron, like, physically abusing his own father. Like, he had him, like, in a chokehold, and he was on top of him, and he finally got in between them and separated them. But that was one of the stories Butch tells about him. Mm-hmm. Butch says that the only person who Ron would fear and absolutely fear was his mother. Mm-hmm. His mother was a small little old Italian lady, and Ron DeFeo, this big 270-pound guy. When his mom flipped out on him, he said that, and Butch was in the room when this happened, she took like a belt and like a razor strap and just started wailing on him. And like Ron DeFeo was like in a fetal position, all huddled in the corner with his head down.
This is learned behavior.
And this is when he's a full-grown adult too. He was just
learned behavior.
He was just terrified of her.
that circle goes and
Yeah.
keeps going and keeps going. I mean, it's awful. And there's no telling what the kids would have been like when they grew up, because they didn't get a chance to. Because when you do this and you create this kind of abuse, people don't think. Stop. Yeah. Yeah. And they just don't think the same anymore. And they keep saying that Butch DeFeo's eyes look dead, like Charles Manson kind of thing, right? And that's why they said that he was possessed and all this other stuff. No, I think his eyes were dead because he'd been getting beaten since he was a baby.
And he was getting beat up in the interrogation room.
Yeah, I think so too. I think all that's true. I really do. I'll tell you, with all this digging, I haven't found anything to change my mind on that. You know? So
those cops really did a number on him too.
Yeah.
Like he had a whole bunch of injuries that they found like after he got arrested, and people were like, "What? What's going on here?"
I mean, can you believe that? And it's not just them. I mean, this is fact. It goes back. You can look into it. The whole Suffolk County thing. We went on that in depth. So if you were not here for the other two, the documentary that I've pulled up, we got really lucky here. I think you're really going to like this because it really goes through everything. And we're going to do part of it tonight, part of it tomorrow night, and finish up tomorrow night. We're definitely going to start getting into the horror and the things that started to happen. But we're also going to touch a little. Last week we did a little on Hans Holzler. And again, like I said, I don't agree with, there's not one person in this world that I agree with everything that comes out of their mouth. What I do is I listen, I try to learn, I go back and research myself, but I'm very interested with people. Some people, when they say stuff that I don't quite agree with at the time, I'll dig. Like Hans Holzler said that he did not believe in heaven and hell. He said that that's a religious thing. But if you dig through his books, like he didn't believe in the devil kind of thing, but if you dig in his books, there's a little deeper explanation on that to where, there's definitely good and evil, but it's vaster and it's a little bit deeper and there's a little bit more of your own perception. He has come back from the dead. And he has talked through mediums and his daughter, with his daughter there, Alexandra. And one of the things he said was it's almost like you can almost, once you get past a certain point, you almost create your own heaven, where it's like it's definitely there, but then you get to do a little bit of what you want to do too. Like he's really loved ballroom dance. So he came back with new dancing shoes and was telling Alexandra about it. Look, Alexandra, I got new shoes. I'm going dancing tonight. So it just sounds so wonderful. Now, I guess if you talk to him now and asked him to explain the difference, maybe he wouldn't be so stringent on things. But if you listen to him and you go through his investigations and the way he spoke to the ghosts and the amount of ghosts that he helped and everything else, he had a certain way of talking and he had a certain way of speaking and he didn't like being misquoted and he sounded a little gruff. But if you really are interested, I would read some of his books and see. Very smart man, a lot of intelligent information there. And if you're interested in the paranormal and you just throw him out because he said one thing, you're missing an awful lot. I mean, he's got like 100 and something books. I didn't read them all. But there's things on mind control and hypnosis and, all these different psychics and ESP and just all kinds of things. There's a vast amount of information there. And I highly recommend a couple, and one of my favorites is Ghosts I've Met and Yankee Ghosts and things like that. And, he does all through the UK, he does Irish Ghosts and all that other stuff. So it's really, really interesting. So I wouldn't dispel that. And, you're really losing a lot of information. So like I said, it's like Jim Mars says one thing, go back and listen to some more because as far as on JFK and UFOs, and he was also a remote viewer for the government for a while, he did a lot of good things. So there you go. I mean, it's kind of like that. So where we left off last week, Donnie, is with this man right here.
Yep. This
is William Weber. This is the trial attorney for Ronald DeFeo. Now, when we left off, Donnie, we had said that Ronald DeFeo was found guilty on all 6 counts, correct?
Yes, yes.
And he got life. And I think it was life without parole, wasn't it? But no death penalty.
It was 25 to life for each one, stacked on top of each other. I don't know how that's supposed to work. Like, he was eligible for parole. He was up for parole, but he just never passed.
Oh, Laura just sent me a thing. It said Christopher Lutz will be at the bash.
Oh, we get to meet him? Okay.
And this is Christopher. So this is the youngest one. I can tell you right now, if you want to see Danny's full account, there is a documentary that was made, I think, 10 years ago. I could be wrong on that. I think it's about 10. And it's called My Amityville Horror. And Laura DeFeo is in that, and so is Joel Martin, and a couple other people. And he gives his account, and you can hear it in his words. And that one is not free on YouTube, but I think you can rent it on YouTube for like $2, $2.99, something like that. It's worth the watch. It really is. I can tell you right now, he's an extremely intense individual. I mean, he's intense and a damn good guitar player. Blue, you'd love it. You know, he's, I'm glad he found that. I'm really glad he found that, because he really looks like, when he's playing, he looks like he found peace, and but damn good little guitar player. So, but it's worth watching, and his account in his words. So there you go. My Amityville Horror. And you can probably, I know I rented it on YouTube for like $2, $2.99, something like that. So one of the things I promised you, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up and see if you can hear it, because I couldn't play it. I didn't have time to record it. Donnie, if you wouldn't mind, do you remember how long the trial was? I think it was about a year. Do you remember? I think it was like a year and a half, wasn't it? It didn't, kind of went through pretty fast.
Yeah. A lot of what this book talked about was about the pretrial stuff. About like the merry-go-round process with the lawyers, and then like the defense not getting any evidence or any like, you could tell the prosecutors and the judges were clearly screwing with them. But then it goes into the chapter with like the DeFeos, I mean, not the DeFeos, the Lutzes and the Warrens, and then during that time it says, and then, by the way, Butch was convicted on all 6 counts.
There you go.
So it doesn't really cover the trial itself very much.
Okay. Well, this is what I wanted to say about that. Remember when I mentioned the dog that started barking at between 3 and 3:30? Around 3:15, a young teenager heard him, and that was one of the only people in the neighborhood that said he heard or saw anything. Nobody heard the gunshots. We all know that. So it kind of gave you that timeline. And I think the ME also found that timeline. And then Joel Martin was one of the first ones who came out as a journalist. He was the first journalist there, wasn't he? Reporter?
Yeah.
Because he was right there in Long Island when they called him.
He was like right there in Long Island, and he was connected to people like in the police department who broke the news to him before the other news outlets got to it, and so he was just a short drive away. So he was like almost there immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was, good, because he really got a lot of, what was going on. And he also, went around the neighborhood and asked everybody and stuff. That's why you see him so much here and all the way through. But like I said, he's one of the ones that kept his integrity all the way through. And I really like listening to this guy, and Laura as well, DeFeo. And they really just try to give you the facts. Like, I was there, and this is what I saw, this is what I felt, I didn't see anything, but I saw this guy, doing this. And it's just, they're not adding anything. They're just telling you what they saw, and that's what journalism should be about. So it shouldn't be one way or the other. If they say it's an opinion, they'll tell you this is my opinion, but this is what the facts are, and they're very good with that. And I think that's the way all journalism should be. But that dog, so Donnie was laughing at, because I said, I'm about the dogs, because they're not the animals, because they're not going to lie. Just like in any case, you see a dog barking at a corner, listen. If the dog is acting funny and there's a storm outside, listen to the animals, because animals know they have these instincts, right? Well, we mentioned the dog. We mentioned the fact that Ron Sr. loved the dog, and of course the family and the kids. Butch DeFeo did not like the dog, and it was no secret. So he warned Butch DeFeo, anything happens to that dog, you hurt that dog, whatever happens to that dog's going to happen to you. Now, there is a part in Shattered Hopes, the YouTube that we dropped for you guys if you want to watch it. Like I said, it's about 6 hours and a 2-hour interview as a bonus at the end. So 8 hours worth of information. If you don't have enough of it now, you can get you more. But in there, they have some wonderful interviews. And one of the interviews they did is...
Cisco, real quick, I just had to run downstairs and plug in my phone so I could watch it later. So I'll be right back.
Sure.
Okay.
And so one of the jurors said something that just really caught me. Because, again, remember, at the very end of the trial, they were deciding, the jurors had a lot choices. You know, you can, this one. One of them was manslaughter by, reason of insanity. Like, he did it, but he didn't really know what was going on. And then you had the complete, like, not guilty by reason of insanity, and we're gonna go get some good drugs for a couple of years in a nice facility. That's kind of where you're sitting, right? So out of all the jurors, there are 2 jurors that are kind of holding out, and they're like, I know he did it, I have no problem believing he did it, but did he know what he was doing? Because at this point, this man here, William Weber, is starting to push, you got to start acting insane, Butch. You got to start, like, bursting out with stuff, start saying crazy things. They had priests sitting in the courtroom that are observing, the whole thing. And then one of the priests that were in the courtroom, and I have no idea who this is, or if he was paid, or if he was just on his own, said that the real horror here is Butch DeFeo because he's possessed by the devil. Now, I find that hard to believe that a priest would say that, because I don't... what do you guys think? That sounds a little funky to me. You know what I mean? Because in the 70s, the big issue was that the Catholic Church was very closed mouth on situations like this. Keep in mind, The Exorcist had come out not long before, and before that, nobody was really paying much attention. But when Exorcist came out, everybody went back to church. People were clutching, crosses and, all this other stuff. And people got scared when they saw what could happen. And that one was based on another case, an earlier case, and that's a whole nother show. A young boy, by the way. So I find it hard to believe that sitting in the courtroom, he would say, yeah, he's possessed by I find this, that's a little murky to me. Plus, I don't think he'd be sitting in the courtroom. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a huge statement. I don't know. What do you guys think there? I think it's bunk, that happened. But he was bursting out and he was saying things, going back and forth. And I think one of the things he said to try to get this insanity plea was he leaned in and he said, you're right, I did it. That's what I'm saying, Aunt Edna, right? Not on camera for sure, or to any reporter, or to a microphone, because I think he'd be, working in a missionary in Africa someplace. They'd send him out, shut him up real quick. I just don't think, it just doesn't make any sense. And to me, that sounds like a big old lie. Red flags went up on that one for me. But he screamed out, when I started shooting, I just couldn't stop. And that chilled everybody in there. So, of course, these jurors are sitting and they do, a count and everything. And they had 2 holdouts. And the 2 holdouts were, the reason they did it was because they said, look, we need to spend more than 5 minutes in here. Even though everybody believes he did it, I want to know, let's go over a couple things because I want to know whether he had his mind about him. Did he understand what he was doing? And I'm going to let you listen, if you guys can hear it, to her words and what she says, because I don't want to put words in her mouth. And you guys let me know if you can hear this. Let me take Weber down here. This guy's a nutcase. You know. All right, let's see if you can, let me know if you can hear this. Turn it up. And this is her words, and I don't even want to say her name because this poor lady.
Discharge, murder in the second degree,
I'm back.
or guilty of manslaughter in the first degree, which would be an acceptance
Do you
of
hear that,
the
Donny?
EED defense, or not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect, or not guilty.
We owed it to not only to the defendant but to the prosecutor to really go over the whole trial and to do it right.
We don't doubt, I think I speak for both of us, that he did it. But we can't just walk in here and convict him in 5 minutes.
It was right away, what, are you crazy? What are you kidding? He did it. And then they wanted to know why we thought he was, and we always said, we know he did it. But was he aware of what he was doing?
For 2 full days and 2 full nights, the debate over DeFeo's sanity would wage on, with Rosemary and Peggy remaining as the holdouts.
The foreman, I just remember her telling us, I have a life, I'm going to get out of here, he's guilty. And then a few other people saying, well, what don't you understand? What, he did it, he killed them. And I would say, I know he did it, I know he killed them, but did he know what he was doing at the time? We did have testimony reread, because what was bothering me, and this is what ultimately convinced me that he did know what he was doing. They had this dog, the sheepdog, and a few witnesses, and I don't remember exactly who they were, but a few witnesses testified that this dog and Ronnie did not get along.
Somewhat important, I felt, the whole thing was how he hated the dog. He just hated the dog, and his father knew he hated the dog, and that's why his father told him them things about the canal and getting run over and stuff like that.
Another witness, it was one of his friends, I don't think it was Skelsky, it was somebody, had said that Big Ronnie knew that Ronnie didn't like this dog, and used to try to hurt him or whatever. And Big Ronnie had said to him once that whatever happens to the dog happens to you. If the dog, and I can remember this like almost verbatim, if the dog ends up in the canal, you'll end up in the canal.
His father had said what happens to the dog is going to happen to you. So that's why I think he didn't kill the dog. He could have shot the dog right off the bat.
Shaggy, who was adopted by DeFeo relatives days later, took the final bite out of Butch DeFeo's insanity defense.
I asked for the testimonies to be reread about where the dog was at the time. He himself testified that he took the dog outside, he tied up the dog, then went back in the house, and then went from room to room to room. Hearing that again, that's what convinced me.
The statements that Butch DeFeo made at trial regarding
That's Ryan.
taking the dog outside before the executions of the family commenced would later completely be contradicted by the stories that he told about an accomplice, because he insisted that there had to be an accomplice because of his bad relationship with the dog, and that Shaggy would have never cooperated with him, so hence that proved that there was someone else there that night.
That's why the whole thing with the dog was so important to me, because that showed that, he did know what he was doing. I often wondered if he knew that this dog that he didn't like is the one that ultimately did him in, because that's what convinced Rosemary and I.
There you go, folks. So, Shaggy, the dog that was tormented by Butch DeFeo, was the one to put him in prison, because they had 2 holdouts, and they changed their mind because he had the wherewithal to chain the dog up outside before he commenced to go back into the house. And whatever happened in the house, he did that. So there you go. So I just wanted to show you that because as far as the animals, there's that dog Shaggy again, the 315 bark and everything else. And the dog did get adopted, like she said, by family members and stuff like that, because that's important to us. We love animals and stuff like that. But isn't that something? I mean, she said it herself, The two of them that held out, and that dog was the final thing. And I thought that was just one of the most ironic thing, that that dog he hated so much was the one that ultimately really put him in jail, because he didn't get the insanity because of that. So how about that? Isn't that something? I love that part. So there you go. That's two dogs. I mean, well, the same dog, but twice, that really kind of anchored things for me as far as fact-wise. And he does come up later again, and another dog comes back again. Harry is another dog that the Lutzes had. So there you go. Donnie, what do you think about that? I know you never got to hear that, and I was trying to explain it, but it's so much more profound coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
What do you think? Okay. Something else, isn't it, guys?
I don't think.
Welcome in, Chisholm. I'm sorry I didn't see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Go ahead.
I don't think Butch DeFeo would have gotten out with the insanity defense. I think it was a doomed.
Yeah.
I think it was
the
doomed
last
to
ditch
begin
effort.
with. Yeah.
It was the last ditch effort. So
Yeah.
here we go. We're going to go from Weber because that's where we left off. And this is the attorney that he eventually wound up with, his trial lawyer. Okay, the first article. All right, now this is where Donnie and I are getting. What happened was at one point after the Lutzes moved out, remember they went into the house, they stayed in it for 28 days. After the fact, they started keeping track of what was going on in, the DeFeo trial. Of course, they wanted to look back. And at some point, they decided that they were going to call Weber to tell him, listen, we just left this house and we had some issues and I was being taken over. This is George and it, this, I'm paraphrasing here. It affected me. It may have affected him too, and it might have had something. You guys might have a case for this. This young man might need help. That's what started it, right, Donnie?
Yep.
Excuse me. Oh.
Yeah, they moved out after, I believe it was 28 days, 29 days.
28.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what started was Weber met with the Lutzes, and they had what's now I call the famous meeting where many bottles of wine, maybe it's 3 bottles of wine, 4 bottles. Well, I can't imagine drinking that much wine. I'm not a wine person. But as they're talking, George Lutz will state in this documentary you're about to see that Weber already had an author, which was Hoffman, okay? And he had contracts that said, listen, if you guys tell me what happened, and we come up, and we put your story out, we can get a book deal, there'll be movies, but we have to bring Butch in on it, and Butch will get a percentage of that. And George says in his words, he says at that point, he was like, okay, so DeFeo is basically going to get paid for these murders. He's going to profit from these killings. And he said he didn't like that. And he said at that point in time, they broke off all contact with Weber. Okay? Weber went on, and the author he had, Hoffman, went and wrote a couple of articles, and I forgot where they appeared. I don't know whether it was in Playboy or it was in magazines. There were so many articles, I had lost track. But obviously he went ahead and did these articles. He didn't have permission, but he got it from Weber, not the Lutzes. They'll tell you that. You'll hear that in interviews, multiple interviews.
Yeah.
So I thought I would put this in here and let you know what happened so you can discern for yourself. The first article appeared it was New York Sunday News on July 18, 1976, titled Life in a Haunted House. The second was titled Our Dream House Was Haunted and appeared in the April 1977 edition of Good Housekeeping. Remember when magazines were like $1.25 and they were right there at the register? It was Family Circle, Good Housekeeping, all that crap. But anyway, and appeared in 1977 edition of Good Housekeeping. Both articles were nearly identical and were based on the experiences that the Lutzes, Weber, and Hoffman brainstormed, catch that word, in January 1976. Now that would lead you to believe, now I got that right off of the AmityvilleMurders.com website, that Rick Osuna has. And you can go there and you can read a lot of articles, you can see documents, you can, all of it, it's all free. You can dig in there and there's pictures, and I will warn you, there are crime scene photos there, and they are not pretty. I promise you that. So I wanted to let you know this so you guys would have the facts. This is when the article started, okay? And it was done by Hoffman, not Jay Anson. Jay Anson was the author that the Lutzes went and got. And that was a whole nother contract.
Yep.
But this is where it started. The next people you will see that are going to come up is Roxanne Kaplan with her late husband, he has since passed, Stephen Kaplan. Now, Stephen Kaplan was, he called himself a parapsychologist and a vampirologist, both. And that's about all I know of him. This is the book that they wrote, the Amityville Horror Conspiracy, that Stephen Kaplan wrote. And you will see Roxanne in this documentary coming up. So you'll be familiar with who she is. And she tells her own story, so I'll let her do that. Donnie, anything on them? Do you recognize her now? I know
yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
Is she in the Osuna book at all?
Not much.
Okay.
Not much.
All right. Well, there they are. And that picture, it looks like, I mean, honest to God, guys, does this not look like the Sears when you used to go to Sears and get the packet of pictures, and they used to guilt you into getting the big pictures and all that other stuff? Yeah. But that's what it looks like to me, the Sears. Not, no disrespect meant, but it's just like a flashback to me. All right. So are you ready for the first vid, guys? Any questions?
Well, I'm ready.
A Mormon I almost married. Oh my God, Sapphire Alpha, a Mormon I almost married. She's a sweet lady. Yeah. I got nothing against them. I mean, she really has some good input on this, but that was just like a Sears portrait center. It could have been worse. It could have been a glamour shot. We could have had a lot, like some feather boas in here and some big earrings and stuff. That was a big deal back in what was that, in the 80s? You're probably too young to know about that. The glamour shots was a big deal. They did these, like they used to fix you up and do your hair and all that, and they do like
make it all look
shots.
all poofy.
Yeah, at the mall.
And,
Something at the mall.
Yeah.
But it could have been worse. Could have been that. And that would have been hard to forget. Okay, so there you go. Let's see what else. Good housekeeping. Wait a minute. Hold on. Giant sewing Bibles prize for that. Yeah. I mean, Family Circle, I can remember my mom getting that one, but I also remember when Time and Life magazines were huge. I mean, that was like in the 60s. Those things were huge and they got real small and all that. But anyway, I digress. So, We're ready for a video. You ready for a video, Donnie?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Here we go. As Steve would say, and I mean this with all the love in my heart, roll that beautiful bean footage. We love you, Steve. Here we go. Hopefully I got the music right on this one. And again, I apologize about that.
This is the most notorious haunted house in the world. It is to be found in the sleepy seaside town of Amityville, an hour away from the hustle and bustle of New York City. 30 years ago, a truly horrifying crime was committed here, when 6 members of the DeFeo family were shot dead in a single night. Even now, the details of exactly how these brutal murders were carried out remain shrouded in mystery. 1 year later, the Lutz family moved in. They fled from the house, having lived there for only 28 days, claiming that they had been driven out by terrifying and unexplained supernatural forces. Their story was the subject of a media frenzy, turned them into celebrities, and became a worldwide bestseller, The Amityville Horror. It would spawn numerous books and films, including one that was released just this year. Mediums and psychic investigators have claimed there is a curse on the property. Others say that the Lutz's story is no more than a clever money-making scheme, built on the gruesome history of the house.
It is probably one of the most haunted homes in the world. It's certainly one of the most publicized haunted homes in the world.
Whatever happened, it was a confluence of events and personalities, and it meshed to form the perfect psychic storm.
It's just this web of lies, and the motivation was simple enough.
They produced a beautiful commercial scam. Their version is not a true story, but if they call it a true story, you know, how could you say that they're liars?
There were too many things that had happened and were going on to sit there in denial that something wasn't right with this.
I guess the Amityville Horror really is supposed to be me, because I'm the one that got convicted of killing my family. I'm the one who said did it. I'm the one that's supposed to be possessed by the devil.
What is the truth about the house in Amityville? And is there really a curse on all who live there? The mysteries and controversies surrounding the Amityville story begin with the horrific events that took place on the night of November 13th, 1974, when 6 members of the DeFeo family, mother, father, and 4 children, were shot to death inside this house.
I had an office in the front of my house, and I was sitting in the office, and my friend...
I just wanted to do a warning real quick. If you guys, if anybody is sensitive, they do flash a couple of crime scene photos here. I couldn't get the thing across it to block it out, so I did want to warn you in case you just want to close your eyes and listen so you don't see the flashing of some of these crime scene photos. I don't approve of it, but I didn't want to chop this all up either, so I just wanted to give you a little warning. If there's kids, or if you have sensitive, or if you're like me and once you see something you see it forever, just go ahead and close your eyes and listen, and you won't miss much. Okay, I can't warn you ahead when they are, but they flash them real quick, so you know, I just wanted to tell you that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And Al Saxon comes in and he said, "Rufus, I got something to tell you. You're not going to believe this." He says, "Everybody next door is dead."
We saw several of the bodies being taken out. I'm sorry to say one of the children's bodies fell off the tarp they were carrying it in, and I saw one of the murdered children. It was ghastly, but pretty straightforward murder case, or at least that's what I thought at the time. It was just very eerie. It was very quiet, and just a chilling, frozen moment. The kind that you never forget. It's a picture that you keep in your head always.
Here you had so-called idyllic suburban family, Italian Catholic. The family had its own
These
business,
freaking
which
pictures,
was an auto
Donny.
dealership.
Yeah.
And of course, with an Italian surname, there are the inevitable whispers.
Mike Brigante's
about
portrait was also up there too.
Yeah.
They didn't show
organized
that.
crime.
A mob killing was quickly ruled out, and the police began to focus on the only surviving member of the family, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr.
George Harrison came, who was chief of detectives over in Suffolk County, and he said, "Can I use your house for a while for our headquarters?" Everybody in my neighborhood was scared to death that there's somebody loose in this town.
From the beginning, Butch DeFeo, Ronnie DeFeo Jr., was suspected. He was originally not arrested. He was taken into protective custody.
It's true.
They decided now they're going to take Ireland's house, which was next door, and turn that into their command post. So they took us all over there.
Next thing I know, they had him in my house, and they were questioning him.
That went on for some time until his grandfather showed up. The police officer heard Ronnie's grandfather tell him, "You'll stop throwing the family name in the mud. I don't want to hear anything more about your sister. just admit to the murders. It's over.
I told them in the beginning things that were true, but, you know, they get the pressure off of me.
Even before this, the Amityville locals had already made their minds up about who had slaughtered the family.
I walked around the neighborhood and I said, can you tell me anything more about what happened? And almost to the person, every kid said, Ronnie did it, Ronnie did it.
I was in my car.
I just love Joel.
I believe the reporter was Joel Martin. Came on and said that the killings had happened. And they didn't say that Ronnie was dead with them. And I said to my wife that it was Ronnie.
Ronnie was, put it this way, a wild teenager.
He had a reputation for using drugs, for violence, for fighting with his father.
He was a punk. All he did was drink, gamble, and fight. If you knew him, and you knew the situation, I guess, or you ever spent any time around him, it was not something that he was incapable of doing. And when everybody else is dead and he's not, you know.
There was a lot of problems, you know. And it's not that I could sit here and lie to you. I can say that.
Yeah, you can.
I knew something bad was going to happen to my mother and father.
Within a short time afterwards, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was officially named the suspect. He was the
That was
alleged
technically
murderer.
true,
He was
though.
the accused.
I mean,
Thank you,
After a
Mairead. I
short,
love you,
sharp
baby.
interrogation, DeFeo confessed to the crimes and gave the first of many versions of what happened.
The standard story is basically that Ronald DeFeo Jr., who was then 23 in 1974, woke up at approximately 3:15 a.m.
That's Rikasuna.
For reasons
Yes.
unknown, basically killed his entire family while they slept.
He took the rifle and shot both
Look
of his
away,
parents
look
who were
away.
sleeping in the master bedroom. Then he shot his younger brothers, 2 of them. And then he went to an adjacent bedroom and shot his sister. And then he walked up to the 3rd floor bedroom and shot his other sister, Dawn.
After what happened, it was like a nightmare. I'm looking at my mother and father dead, my sister. I said, my God. I got scared. I ran out of the house, jumped in my car, ran down the street, and got my friends and came back to the house.
And just for a second, I got to stop there. You're 100% right, Blue. Oh, God, not on that picture. Hold on just a second. I'm sorry,
DeFeo's
guys.
confession
I'm
did
so
not
sorry.
explain a number of puzzling mysteries about the
Hold on.
killings.
well, that's a reconstruction. Those aren't real bodies.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
reconstruction. It's still awful. So, what I wanted to say is this. That's not the way it went down. In reality, we know that much because it happened the night before. He went to work all day, was calling the house from the office, making himself like calling in front of witnesses like the secretary that had worked there at the Buick dealership for years, an older woman. Gosh, I can't get a hold of my family. I don't know what's going on. And she says something to him like, well, you remember your dad had that appointment, or your dad had to take your brother, the one that with the broken mark, with the broken ankle, to the doctor. So that's probably what's going on. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Thank you, man. I've been trying to get a hold of him all day. So he made a point of going around all day long trying to get a hold of his family, and I can't get through, and setting up witnesses for that. So what he just said was, again, a lie. He didn't just, you know what I mean? And what Weber is saying is not correct either, with going in and shooting twice here and twice there. We know the mom was shot with a 38 once. Was she not, Donnie, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, just shot with a 38.
Okay. And I've heard multiple stories where he's saying, I can't sit here and lie. Yes, he can. All day long, every 5 minutes. His thing changed. What I tried to do and what Donnie tried to do is pick apart the facts that he was, and seeing if they matched up with reality in some cases. And we kind of came down to where we are now. And I gotta say, Rick Osuna and Ryan, God bless him, Ryan, who did the Shattered Hopes, really digs deep in that. So if you want to look at those again, and that website, that's where I would recommend.
And Rick Osuna, keep in mind, is not defending Butch DeFeo.
No.
He does point out, like, that guy does deserve to be in jail.
Right.
He did commit a crime. But again, but also the system was highly corrupt. Why can't both be true? Right? People are assuming that if it was corrupt and the police were corrupt and the odds were stacked against him, does that mean he's completely innocent? No, right? You could have both cases being true.
I don't know what you mean, Blue. No, just the opposite. Can you clarify? Because I'm really interested. Blue has a lot of experience in this department.
Well, he was answering someone's question. He was answering Sapphire Elf's question when he asked him
Burnt
or
pasta?
she more deceptive indicators than truthful ones, like on the whole, and then Blue said no, just the opposite.
So more truthful ones than deceptive?
Yeah, I guess.
Interesting. Okay. All right, here we go.
Prompt rumors of accomplices, conspiracies, and even
That's a
supernatural
reenactment,
influence.
guys, which is
They were
gross.
each shot with a .35 Marlin. We had an experiment conducted when we were preparing for trial. The noise level of the .35 Marlin, and that Marlin could be heard close to 4 to 5 blocks away from the house.
Nobody heard a thing. I did find, however, one of the neighbors who heard at about between 3 and 3:30 in the morning the family's dog barking. It was crying or baying.
With all the shots that took place, there were approximately nine blasts from a Marlin. There was no evidence that any of the 6 victims had made any attempt to escape.
What was so odd is how you managed to shoot 6 people in the middle of the night in a quiet neighborhood without awakening any of the people. A shotgun blast is pretty loud.
Wasn't a shotgun.
That doesn't make any sense.
One might argue, well, maybe they were being held by another gunman and told not to move until Ronnie came around and did what he did.
I thought perhaps the bodies had been...
Here we go. This is Peter Jordan, guys. I introduced you to him last week. This is one of the journalists and parapsychologists and people that have held their integrity through the 50 years. This is one of them. And I don't normally say that about a lot of parapsychologists because in the 70s, we had a lot of... say your Auerbachs and your Barry Tafts, and not to say I disagree with everything they say, but this man right here, in my opinion, at least what I know so far, really had a wonderful open mind about the whole thing, if you know what I'm saying. And Vixen Doe, they supposedly, their toxicology reports came up clean, no drugs, which makes me suspicious because I think Dawn was high off her ass.
Dawn was on all sorts of drugs.
All the time.
Yeah.
You know, so I got suspicions on that. But then again, they're only going to pull up what they test for. It's, you know, people misunderstand toxicology reports. They're only going to test for a couple things. If you don't specific test, you're not going to get tested for it. So
you have to keep in mind that a lot of the information was withheld. A lot of the medical examiner's information, a lot of their findings were withheld from the trial, which also led to the whole real shadiness of it all. Evidence was withheld from the defense side. The trial was just so rigged. And again, just because it's rigged does not mean, I'm saying that he was innocent.
No.
You know?
No,
But
just
it
like
was
the lady
rigged.
with the juror with the dogs that we knew he did it. He may have had help, but for some reason, if you remember, Mike Brigante, which is the Louise's father and Butch DeFeo's grandfather, told him in the kitchen, shut up. I don't want to hear any more about your sister or anything else. I don't want the family name raked through the coals anymore. You're all I have left. Let's get this done and over with. You know, you did it and that's it. You know, I mean, but Mike Brigante did not abandon him. You know, he was still trying to help him. And he told Geraldine, don't, you know, leave him. You're all he's going to have. You know, you don't have to stay married to him, but can you please go check on him and all this other stuff. Mike Brigante was really something else when it came to this kind of thing. A real Italian grandfatherly kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? Bought the house, bought the pictures, bought the kids' stuff, took care of his daughter, all this kind of mess. Okay? So there we are. Again, you know, when you're hearing Weber talk or Butch talk or something like that, you got to take it with a grain of salt there.
And you also have to take with a grain of salt the findings of the court, because there was a lot of evidence that was being withheld.
Left out.
Yeah.
And left out. Yeah, yeah.
A lot of
And
major evidence too.
also, I would like to reiterate, Donnie, you can back me on this or tell me I'm wrong. I believe that when again, it was a Marlin. It was a 35 Marlin. When you hear Weber say that there was zero evidence to say anybody else had been there, I think we proved that wrong last week. When, Donnie was saying about the military flashlight that Bobby, what's his name?
Bobby Kelsky.
Kelsky.
Yeah.
Said that he was holding and that he was there and he threw the flashlight on the chair. I had not known it. I was going through the crime scene photos and found that picture of that flashlight sitting on that chair. It just was so out of place. And it made me take pause and wonder what's going on here. There's another piece of evidence that comes up in the Shattered Hopes where Rick and Ryan got together and they found crime scene photos that showed several different things. One is called the bloody shoe, and you can see all this on the website, the AmityvilleMurders.com, and you can see pictures there, and you can read, what they came up with. But there was a bloody shoe that had blood on it, which would say that somebody got up out of bed because of where the blood was. And there was also blood found in the top stair hallway at the top of the stairs on the second floor coming out of the bedroom where the parents were.
Yeah.
The blood splatter evidence there. And, I'm not no expert on blood splatter evidence, but I've been studying that for a while too, the way it flies and how it gets and all that kind of stuff. I know it sounds disgusting, but it was just something that crime scene investigation that fascinated me. The blood splatter evidence is that of someone who was coughing up blood and expectorating, through spit. So it also had bubbles in it, which would almost be from someone who had been shot in the lung. He was shot, the first shot that went through his back, clipped his lung, and went through him, through the mattress and onto the floor. And they found the bullet on the floor.
Yeah.
They say that it's possible that when he got shot, he came out of the room and went for them, and that's when he got shot again. And it was one of the things that came up in this, that there was no way, if he was by himself, how much did he weigh? About 170 pounds?
Butch?
Butch was
like
small.
175. Yeah, he was a small guy.
And his dad was almost 300. How did
Yeah.
he pick him up and move him if nobody helped him? And that was one of the big things. And again, I have no answer for that. I just want to put the information out there. Donnie,
And
you have anything
the
on
medical
that?
examiner also had evidence of blood splatters in the hallway, which would corroborate Butch's account in Rick Osuna's book that he actually shot and killed his father in the hallway.
And that's why he had to. That's why they say that he left and went back and got Bobby. Because Bobby got panicked and ran out of the house, and he needed help help moving his father.
And
so
then
that's something to think about.
And then when he was out looking for Bobby, that's when Dawn went ahead and killed the kids,
That was the story.
according to Butch's story in the book.
Right. So keep that in mind, and when you're thinking about all this, it's just little information. Okay. Here we go.
Moved from their original spots. The autopsy reports show that no, they were not moved, that they were in the original places that they were when they were shot. There were no drugs found in the bloodstreams, and again, the victims are found lying face down in death with the arms outstretched as if placed there. There seems to be something almost systematic and very methodical about it that would seem to involve in more than just one person.
The curious anomalies of the crime scene would provide some eerie clues as to who or what had been responsible for the killings in Amityville. After Ronald DeFeo had confessed to shooting his entire family, attorney William Weber found himself faced with the difficult task of defending him. Weber began by investigating what went on in the DeFeo home.
The family life at the DeFeo residence was kind of bizarre and unusual. Because on one hand, they appeared to be very religious artifacts throughout the house. statues throughout the exterior of the house. But inside, when Mr. DeFeo was there was constant fighting, bickering, yelling, screaming, activities that would go way beyond normal fighting that families may have.
There were beatings that often would occur for no particular reason, from what I understand. The father would just fall into these terrible rages, and Ronald often became the focus of those rages.
Ronnie's friends were afraid to come into the house because they were just afraid of the father. There was testimony about the father beating the wife in the presence of Ronnie's friends.
And that kind of abuse often leads to abuse of others that are weaker or more subordinate.
So when you look beyond the nice, quiet suburban street, there were troubles in that family.
Many people told me about the abuse he received as a child from his father. On the other hand, I was also told about the great love he received from his mother and his close relationship with his brothers and one of the two sisters. So he was a very unusual and difficult personality.
We were really a close family, you know. It's a shame what happened, but it happened.
The other thing about Ronald DeFeo, of course, was he immediately started ranting and raving from prison.
In case you guys didn't know, I absolutely respect this woman. I'm trying to get a hold of her to see if she'll come on the show. And if I can't, we'll just have to, you know, accept it through these. But I think she is, she's my anchor in this whole thing, if you know what I mean. She's just kept it right and, you know, right there. And she's tried to be very honest. She was 20 years old when this happened. So that's a long time to be involved in this. So I just wanted to say that.
And that the devil made him do it.
Some priest was in the courtroom watching my performance on the witness stand. He felt that my performance, I had to be possessed by the devil.
You know, there were echoes of Charles Manson from the late 60s and the Sharon Tate murders in California. Ronald DeFeo had that same wild-eyed look as Charles Manson.
I don't think he was dealing with a full deck. Yeah, you gotta be insane to kill your own family. You're well on your way.
I asked a friend and associate, Dr. Daniel Schwartz, to interview him. Dan gave a professional opinion that Ronnie was acting in another state of mind, that he didn't understand the nature of his acts or that what he was doing was wrong.
And just in case you didn't know, when you're hiring an expert, you can hire an expert to say just pretty much anything you want. You just keep going through experts till they say what you know what you're trying to push. That's just an old court game. If you had 10 experts come through and 5 on one side and 5 on the other and they all agreed, maybe I'd listen. But what do you think, Donnie? Agreed?
Well, they tend to do that in this community as well. They bring on, like, you know, experts.
So true. So true. So true. There we go.
It was out of my control. I did not have touch with reality at the time I did what I did. I had no control over it.
Weber decided on a plea of insanity. When he interviewed DeFeo about what he remembered happening on the night of the murders, a strange series of events was described that would prompt speculation about who was behind the killings.
Ronnie had taken some drugs. He was watching television and there was a war picture on. And at the end of the picture, Ronnie was in the room alone. He said initially he thought that he heard members of his family in another room conspiring to kill him. The one thing that he said, and sometimes he said it with a smirk, so I wasn't sure if it was truthful, but he said that a female with black hands gave me the rifle and I went ahead and shot everybody.
His original testimony was that at some point a hooded, black-handed demon handed him a weapon and that he went upstairs and that he committed the murder. He said the murder, not the murders.
During the trial, one expert argued that DeFeo may not have acted alone.
Herman Race was a criminologist hired by the defense. Herman Race, in a closed courtroom, that means they cleared out the public, told the judge and the prosecutor that some of the bodies had been moved, that they were not all killed in the positions they were found. He also said that he believed that multiple weapons were used, not just one high-powered rifle.
Intriguingly, many years later, journalist Rick Moran was contacted by a drug enforcement agent who told him that he had the DeFeo home under observation at the time of the killings and had seen Ronnie's sister, Dawn, leave the house.
On the night of the murder, that operative did see Dawn DeFeo wearing a snorkel-type jacket and gloves come out of the house with a rifle, throw the rifle into the backseat of her car, and drive out towards the point where the city has a dock, which is exactly where the weapon was found by police divers later on. When he told the police that a hooded, black-handed demon came to him and handed him the weapon, but that he didn't move, I believe that it's true. I don't think he was in any condition to move. The demon that he was talking about was his own sister.
Donny DeFeo's night clothes show...
Now, what do you think about that, Donnie?
Yeah, I think...
It's in the book, right?
Yeah, that black-handed woman, that's Dawn, baby.
Well,
That's
he
Dawn.
actually said in the transcripts, a black-handed, a hooded demon with black hands handed me the gun.
Yep.
And again, we believe that he was, it goes up and down, but most of the people in the neighborhood that knew him, he was on meth, heroin, and alcohol. And from what I understand, other people were saying too that he didn't even sleep for days. So you got sleep deprivation, you got everything else going on, plus the big fight before and the beating and everything else. And keep in mind, he was married to Geraldine, and they lived about 90 minutes, somewhere, about 90 minutes away. The father came and got him the night before, pulled him out of his own house, away from his wife and his baby, supposedly the baby is his, and said, "You're not spending enough time at home. I made you, I paid for everything, I'll cut you off, and you won't have anything if you don't come home now." And he left with him. If he hadn't come and got him, he might not have been killed. I mean, there's so much ironic chicanery going on here. But listen very closely. Blue, listen to this. Tell me what you think.
Unburnt powder.
I'll start it. I'm sorry, I talked over it. Let me just
Oh, yeah, I remember this part.
Just let me back that up just a second. I'm sorry.
Black-handed demon came to him and handed him the weapon, but that he didn't move, I believe that it's true. I don't think he was in any condition to move. The demon that he was talking about was his own sister.
Dawn DeFeo's night clothes show unburnt powder, which indicates she may have fired a rifle that night.
Moran's theory is that Ronnie and his sister Dawn had plotted to kill their parents together.
I think on the night that they decided they were going to do that, Ron was in no condition to be able to do it. And that Dawn took a long rifle and committed the murders. Unfortunately, in the frenzy of it, she apparently decided she was going to take out everybody.
I've always been partial to the idea that indeed something special existed between Ronald DeFeo and his sister Dawn. Now, some say that that was incest, I don't know, but there was a special connection, a special bond, perhaps a bond of secrecy. She was the one that was killed the most violently. The head is just completely exploded.
The theory is that Dawn DeFeo killed the family and that Ronnie, in despair, murdered Dawn. So he's responsible for one murder, which would also explain the grandfather's reaction of, "You'll take all of the rouse," because he was the only one who was left, and he didn't want to see anything more about relationships within the household or his family name being sullied.
Donnie, do you have an answer for this one? I looked and looked and looked. I couldn't find any paraffin tests on the hands of the victims. I don't even know if they did one on him because Butch was taken into protective custody for a while, at least a full day.
Yeah.
And then they flipped and said, "You're the guy we're looking for." So what do you think, Donnie? Can you answer that?
Well, about the paraffin test, I do not know.
Okay.
However, I do know that the evidence they did find with regards to the powder, the unburned powder on her dress, was not submitted in the trial. It was
That's
completely
true.
disregarded, and
True.
it was only they only found out about it because Herman Race, the guy that was mentioned, was hired as a private investigator by Michael Brigante to
Yes.
get to the bottom of what went down, and he was a former law enforcement, so I guess he had connections and access, and he got to see some of what the medical examiner's findings were.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back to Mike Brigante and said, "Yeah, I think Dawn did it." And then Mike Brigante apparently, as the story goes, was sitting on the couch and he slid off his couch and like slumped on the floor. And he was
Yeah.
like, "Not my Dawn. No, not my Dawn."
Yeah. He this poor man went through absolute sheer hell as well, because yeah. Life of crime will, bad things, bad things, But there you go, Blue. I'm not 100% sure. They don't even, I don't think they mention it they do get a little deeper in this and the evidence and things. Ryan does a great job in the Shattered Hopes. You'll see documents and everything else. And again, those are also available on the Amityville murders that Rick did. So all of that's there, but I don't think they even bothered because, like I said, they weren't interested in it. They didn't. They went right after Butch. At first, Butch was taken into protective custody. Remember all the cop stuff that we heard before when they came out and talked to the public, and they said, "What do you mean? Why is he in protective custody? Because his whole family's dead. We don't know who did it, so we're going to protect him." Meanwhile, they take him in there. He's sleeping on the couch, and when the bullets are found in his closet that match the shotgun, that was it. But that's when they came in, woke him up, and he said, I got to tell you the truth, Butch. I think you're the guy we're looking for. And then the interrogation started. So at that point, I don't know. We'd have to look at the Emmy stuff there. But again, like he said, everything was kept out of the trial. They didn't even bring this stuff in, did they?
No.
None of it.
No.
Okay. All right.
The medical examiner didn't even know that he had jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Like when they later went on to investigate the Suffolk County Police Department for corruption, and they were asking about like investigations and crime scene protocol, and they asked the medical examiner, like, who has jurisdiction, like you or the police precinct? They answered the police precinct, and the investigators were like, "No, it's you." And the fact that they didn't know that made them realize, oh, this situation is way worse than I thought.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do get to meet the ME. I think he was extremely overwhelmed. You can hear it in his own words, and that is also in Shattered Hopes, that YouTube link that we put up there. And he tells his story. He got a phone call, and he was about having dinner. Some friends brought over dinner, and I think this was it was about 6:30 that everything started happening with the cops in and out of the house and all that stuff, right? Well, he got a call. And one of the guys at the, whoever called him at home said, he said, "I have some bad news. We have a body." And he said, okay. He goes, "Well, actually, we have 4. And he was like, "Oh my gosh." And he says in his words, I can almost quote him verbatim. He said, "1 body is a night's work. 2 bodies is overwhelming. 3 is a nightmare, and 4, ugh." And he hung up. He told his wife he had to go, grabs his stuff, ready to leave. The guy calls back again, and he says, "I'm sorry, I was mistaken." He said, "We don't have 4 bodies." And he went, whoosh, like this. I was like, oh, thank God. And he said, "We have 6. So they saved Dawn for last, because he went in the order of going up the stairs, and she was on the 3rd floor. And for a while, they didn't even notice she was up there. They were in the kitchen for a long time, didn't even know she was up there. They found her later. It's weird how this can happen. But he said that he saved her for last, and had he known how important the examination of Dawn's body would be, he would not. He handed her off to an assistant because they had so much processing to do, and he did not do the autopsy himself. Am I correct in that, Donnie, or you don't know?
I'm not sure
I
who
believe
did the
that's
actual
correct.
autopsy, but yeah, but the rest of that I can confirm. Like
Yeah, yeah.
said,
He
yeah.
said if he had known, he would have done it himself and spent more time on it. So that's why a lot of this is botched, especially with Dawn. Okay, if that helps.
And to be of sound mind. He was given 6 life sentences in February 1975. The DeFeo home at 112 Ocean Avenue was put up for sale at a knockdown price because of its ghastly history. It was then that George and Kathleen Lutz, newlyweds with a young family, went to view the house, and the next extraordinary chapter of the Amityville Horror began.
Oh, here comes the fun stuff.
I like the spider because he was black and red and he matched so well and it's creepy.
Yeah.
But there you go. All right, we got to make you laugh a little bit. All right, so up until this point, I think that explains everything. And Aunt Edna, I know, right? I love this. That amazes me. One would think that every inch of that house would be checked. Well, that's what we like to think, right? But no, not so. Not so in this. Oh, gosh, I just feel something creepy. Is that a spider? Oh, jeez. I freaked myself out. It was my own hair. Oh, spiders. Oh, don't get me started on spiders. Okay. No, it was my hair. Tell me that
That's
was
an
my hair.
entire podcast episode in and of itself.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez, the spiders. That's a black widow. But anyway, this is amazing to me. Now, here's some facts I'm going to throw at you. One, no, that house was not. The way they handled that, again, we are absolutely appalled when we hear like the Vasilla Axe murder house where people tramps through there, like thousands of people. Or the Lizzie Borden, same thing. And then we're moving up. We go through history and we try to figure, oh my gosh, what's going on? What's going on? I know, be kind. I about jumped 3 feet out of my chair because, oh my gosh, I'm still not convinced that was my hair. So anyhow, let me tell you this, and this will make you sick. When the Lutzes bought the house, this is like 13 months it sat, right? When the Lutzes came in and bought the house. You know, they were still scraping the stuff off the walls at that point. They still had to clean stuff. And keep in mind, they bought some of the furniture. Now, in Shattered Hopes, Ryan brings up the fact, he says that he was looking for extra, like he had the stuff from the estate sales because, you know, they sold so much stuff. The only thing Mike Brigante took out of that house was those portraits. The portraits wound up being buried with his wife when she died. She was the last one to go, and she had them buried in the coffin with her.
Oh, except for the one with Butch and Ron, that was actually given to, I believe, Ron's father. I believe.
Rocco?
Yeah.
Okay. But she fought for those things and she took them to her grave, literally. So those portrait things just they creep me out. They creep me out. Yeah. And they were still, like I said, they're still scraping stuff off the walls. I mean, Laura DiDio says that. And keep in mind, they were in that house right after the Lutzes left and got to talk to the Lutzes. She went to the house in California when they fled and went to go stay with, what's her name? Kathy Lutz, her mother. That's where they fled to. They went to California. Go ahead.
Can I try to answer Be Kind's question? Good
Absolutely.
Lord. Who would buy a house in that condition, let alone the furniture? I can
That's
answer
true.
that question. Someone who's trying to make money off a book deal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, they nosedived on that house like as soon as it was available. They came charging to get that house.
Right, and you'll hear in one of the interviews with Butch, he makes a claim that he knew the Lutzes before. Now, I don't believe this. I don't find any corroborating evidence for this, and Laura DiDio and Joel has looked into it, being from Long Island, knowing the people and going around and talking, doing investigative work, you know, has basically said that they don't believe that either. Because he gives this long story about he used to buy drugs for George. He used to buy heroin for George. And Kathy liked cocaine. And he had to go to a different place on Weiss Street, if I got that correctly, to purchase that for her. And that they knew each other beforehand and all that. I don't believe that. I'm not in that camp. I don't
this
believe
book-
it because people were there. What do you think?
This book talks about how they knew each other through. They weren't close; they knew each other through acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
But they were the. It talks about that wine meeting. You know how
right.
it would be William Weber and Kathy Lutz drinking wine, and then George would be drinking beer. The one thing that this book mentions, though, was that there was another person at that meeting, Geraldine.
Really?
Yeah.
That she was sitting at the thing with Weber and them?
At least one of them. If there had been more than one, then maybe. But she was at one of them. They brought her in because, according to Geraldine in this book, remember, she's sitting next to him and she's telling her account as well. She was brought in to one of those wine meetings, and they introduced each other, and they got to they sat down, tried to really get to know each other. Mm. And one of the main reason why they brought Geraldine was because they were hoping that she could convince Butch to go along with the insanity case and claim that he was possessed. And they were hoping that she would be the one to convince him to take all the coaching to go along with that ploy.
Okay.
So according to Geraldine's experience, she's sitting there drinking wine, they're chit-chatting. She says that George was a very business-minded guy. Like, he was all about the plan. Yeah. He was all about just the money and she noticed that he treated it like this whole business idea.
Yeah. And
Kathy
everybody
Lutz,
says that, by the way. I can back that up with other people saying that he was very business and continued to be. And one of those people, actually, I think both Danny and Chris both said that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That he was it was all about him. And that's one of the things that pissed the kids off, because he kept signing all these releases for these garbage movies that were made after, that kept exploiting them, and they kept exploiting these poor DeFeo kids and everything else, and all this weird shit that just made up out of nowhere in the later movies,
And
so, if that makes
Geraldine's observation of Kathy Lutz, she said that the whole time Kathy Lutz kept going on in these tangents about her interest in transcendental meditation and witchcraft. And she kept talking about the wooey aspect, I can feel all the energy, the negative energy emanating from that house. There's something there. Meanwhile, George Lutz is talking about, the percentages on the book deal. And then meanwhile, you got Kathy Lutz next to her husband, going full woo, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, Geraldine's sitting there what the hell is going on? And she said that the moment she got up and left was when Kathy Lutz suddenly held her fingers against her temple. She's like, "Oh, I'm getting a message from them right now." And then Geraldine said that she had enough, and she just stood up. She's like, "Y'all are full of shit. I want nothing to do with you." And then she just left.
Mm-hmm. And that's how Rick met her. I believe Rick Osuna got a call from her that said, "What are you doing with this website with all this bullshit about the the this and the that and the haunting and all this other stuff?" So, that kind of thing. So again, you gotta do your own thing. There's so many people in this, so we have to discern through all the fog of bullshit and try to get to facts. But interesting. I didn't know that. That's incredible. See, again, thanks for the research, man. Yeah, and again, I can back her up. And I don't know her from Adam, but most of the people that said that they knew her, she did turn down Butch when Butch said he wanted to sue Rick, because again, Butch was all about the money, even in prison, to make more money. What is he doing with it? I don't know, but there you go. All right. Okay, Glenn. We'll be here, sweetie. And I love you, Cassie. Thanks so much for popping in, darling. She's always been so kind to this channel, and we love her. Get over there and get on Oracles and Beyond, and anybody else that's got... Susan, I love you, darling. If you've got a website, you're welcome to put it up. If you can't, let me know. Send me a message or a DM on the other side. I want to promote everybody's talent and everybody's ideas for shows and, everything else. We support each other here. So if you've got, please drop your link, Cassie. And she's doing wonderful things over there. And I believe she started a new true crime channel. And because we want to support everybody. So please do that. You're more than welcome. All right. Now I got one more. And we're taking it to the for tomorrow night, we're going to try to get you a list of all the haunting stuff and all the legends and everything else. And probably tomorrow night, we'll go ahead and watch that In Search of too, because it's so hard to get any kind of footage on this that I'm allowed to play for you. And we're digging, so you guys can get from their own mouths and everybody, all the evidence and everything else, and you can see it and you can discern for yourself. Yes, I would love to give you a wrench. Give me a second, I'll play this Sapphire Elf and I'll give you a wrench. And Cassie, you should have one if you don't. And again, I would like to say, YouTube, for some reason, deleted all of Ted's messages last week. And I was trying to figure out how that happens. Sometimes YouTube will take away wrenches. They'll put people in the sandbox. So I'm going to go and check the sandbox to see if anybody is stuck in there, because I don't see Ted. And he didn't say anything. I can't imagine why they would take stuff off. But they have certain words that they don't like. I forget, the list is too long for me to...
No, I think he got banned by somebody. He got banned by a blue wrench, right?
Did he say something?
I think if you get banned by a blue wrench, it automatically deletes the messages.
Is that what happens?
As someone who's been banned myself, as someone who's experienced being banned.
You know that side of it?
I know that side.
I don't know,
I've been
but
hit
I
with the
want to
ban
check. Did he do something? Does anybody know? I don't think Ted said anything, did he? Insulting or otherwise? All right. If I'm wrong, please let me know, because I don't question my mods. My mods are tried and true. They are Black Ops mods. They are not going to put up with crap, but they will give you a warning. So thank you, Cassie. Get over there and sub for her. And, Sunday Night True Crime. Oh, excellent. There you go. All right. Oh, there he is. There's Ted. Ted's good. He's here. Honey, I didn't take in your messages off. Something happened last week. It wasn't us. It might have been YouTube or it might have been a mistake, but you're good. You're here. He's here. We're great. All right. We're all good. And he's innocent.
Yeah.
Yep. I know a good attorney. This William Weber's not doing anything. We can get him in here to speak for you. Maybe not. All right. This is the last little one. This one's about 10, 15 minutes or so, but it takes us up to where we need to be tonight. Here we go. Ready, Donnie?
Ready.
Real quick, I wanted to say that somehow I managed to get this clip from the movie about the priest. Now, in the movie, the original movie, this is from the original. It's Rod Steiger is his name, I believe. I may have that wrong because names are my thing. But it was really neat to listen to Laura describe this, Laura DeFeo, in another interview. And she was talking about how they got the flies to stick to him. They covered him in sugar water. And he sat there with all these flies crawling over him and everything else. Now, the reason I put that in there is not only because it's probably one of the most famous scenes of the movie. Number two, it made Get Out, two words in the paranormal that have been forever now EVPs and everything else. Everybody's, saying, and it made it, like a paranormal anthem almost for EVPs or hearing things tell you to get out. This was it. This was that scene. Now, some interesting facts about that real quick. You heard last week where the Cromleys, the people that lived in the house after the Lutzes, said that priest, whose real name was, what was it? It's not Father Mancuso. They changed the name in the book and the movie. It was, I don't know, doesn't matter. It was something else. But the actual priest that went in there said in the trial that never happened, and he lied. Okay? That was never in the trial. And even That's Incredible came back afterwards and said nothing like that was ever in the transcript. So either the Cromleys were mistaken or they had been told the wrong information. Laura DeFeo met him years later, sat with him, and he said every bit of that happened. Not only was he told to get out, not only did he get sick, but he said he was slapped in the face and then told to get out. This was from the priest. He said that a couple of times he said that it did not happen because his superiors told him to shut up. That I believe. That sounds interesting. Keep that in mind. Does that make sense, Donnie?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Oh, they deleted my stuff all the time and unsubscribed me. Well, Ted, you hang in there, buddy. Keep fighting because we want you here, okay? All right. So I got that for you. So watch this scene again. It's creepy as all get out. Too bad we got to go. Creepy as all get out.
When you look at enough homes, you get a sense for what feels good to you and what doesn't. This house had no reservations for us. It was the answer to so many different things that we thought would be perfection of a sort. We discussed the events that had happened in the house as a family and came to the decision that we would all be okay with the history of what had happened. But I don't think any of us considered the possibility that there would be something residual there.
According to the Lutzes, there were unsettling occurrences from the...
Right out the gate, we never considered that anything residual would be there. 6 people died in that house 13 months before this. And I can tell you that these children, do you see how old these children are? That is in the picture. That is, of course, George and Kathy and Missy, the little girl. She was supposedly 5. I don't know. She looks kind of tall for 5. But anyway, maybe she's sitting on something. I don't know what. It doesn't matter. And that's Danny standing up there. He was 9. And crouching down there is Chris. He was 7. And that is Harry, the dog. You can't see him because he was half black lab, half something. Really prominent in the story. Because you'll hear, and I won't interrupt again, but you'll hear George Lutz say this. And I wrote it down because what he says in this interview and many others, in almost every interview he's ever done, he says within the first hour or 2 being there in that house, Harry tried to hang himself. Okay. What happened was they hear the dog barking, they hear some commotion. Now there's a boathouse out back, and they had the dog tied to the fence or something. He was on a leash, and the dog jumped the fence, and the leash was too short for him to reach the ground on the other side, and he was hanging himself. I don't think the dog tried to hang himself. To me, that is the first swaying of the truth. Let's portray it this way. Did the dog jump the fence? Probably. Was the dog hanging there? Did the kid have a hard time getting the dog over? It was too heavy for this little boy to lift and put back over the fence. So, of course, screaming ensued and everybody went running out there. But to say the dog tried to hang himself is stupid. Because I don't think the dog tried to hang himself. The dog may have been trying to get away from something it didn't want to be around, or maybe it was in a new place and it just tried to jump because it wanted to be with the kids. I don't know. But if you listen to the way things are said, that to me was one of the first where they started to sway the truth a little bit into one direction or another. You be the best judge on that, but what do you think about that, Donnie? I mean, the dog didn't try to hang himself. No dog sat there and go, you know what? It's a good day to die. I'm going to jump this fence and hang myself because it doesn't look to me like this leash is long enough and that ought to do the trick. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that seems a bit inconclusive.
This is what I'm saying. It sounds to me like a sway, like an exaggeration to fit the narrative. That's just my take, my opinion.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, okay?
That's a strong way to put it, too. Tried to hang himself. Maybe it was just an accident.
He says it every time.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's lying. I'm saying the choice of words and the way he's putting it is trying to fit a narrative.
He's trying to sensationalize it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what? Did the dog write a suicide letter, too? You know? It's like,
yeah. It just doesn't sound right. And that was like, what? Hold on. You know?
Yeah.
And then everything you say after that, I've already got that taste in my mouth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go.
very beginning.
Harry tried to hang himself, our dog, our black Labrador retriever. He jumped over the fence, and his chain was too short, and he was actually hanging on the wrong side of the fence, choking to death. That was all within the first hour of moving in.
George Lutz then says that a good
Or
friend
maybe he was in an
who
unfamiliar
strangers
environment and
strongly
started going
advised him to
crazy
have
and
it blessed.
exploring and running around because he was in a new place, you know?
Who knows, man?
When about the house blessing came.
Just go back one more second so you can hear that.
George Lutz then says that a good friend who knew the history of the house strongly advised him to have it blessed.
The priest came and went about the house blessing and came out and told Kathy and I not to use the one upstairs bedroom we were going to use as a sewing room as a bedroom. He said he felt something in there. And he was slapped. He heard a voice tell him to get out. Those were two things that were immediate first day, first few hours.
Within the first few days, George Lutz claims he found himself waking regularly at 3:15 in the morning, feeling restless, uneasy, and often hearing strange noises. Significantly, this was the time when the DeFeo murders were estimated to have taken place.
I got very sick in the house and lost a lot of weight, lost days at work. My own personal hygiene changed there.
He was undergoing personality changes. He would snap at the family. He and Kathy were having arguments. He could not get warm. He was constantly outside chopping wood, building fires. Kathy would go to different rooms in the house and feel different things.
She was embraced by what she felt was someone, a woman. When she told me about it, she was quite frightened and quite disturbed by it.
The Lutzes reported swarms of houseflies infesting certain rooms, highly unusual in midwinter. They were also becoming increasingly anxious about the behavior of their daughter Missy.
Nessie started explaining to Kathy that she had a friend, the friend's name was Jody, that had represented itself to her as a large pig. When Jody told her that he was glad she was there and she was going to be living there forever, that was quite disturbing.
As the days went past, the Lutzes claimed that more and more strange things were happening around them.
When you hear screams at night and you hear footsteps at night and the kids are saying strange things and the temperatures in the house vary and the spots that would appear in the carpet in the morning, the progression of certain toilets turning black, the china actually turning black. When you sit down and you start talking about those, then there's obviously something wrong.
They still don't like to talk about what happened that very last night that finally drove them from the house.
I will never be able to set aside what had gone on that night, all night, and the boys, the way they looked and what they said when they came down that morning.
Come on, babies, come on, come on, get out!
The Lutz family say they finally fled from the house in the early morning of January 14th, 1976. They would never...
My birthday, by the way. When I read that, I threw the book. I was like, because like what I said, when you're a teenage girl and you've got all this like connections to this, you know, it just kept freaking me out. They left on my birthday, and it tripped me out. Up until this point, what Lord DeFeo said, that they still don't like to talk about that night. There's been a couple people that said, did you hear George Art Bell's interview with George Lutz? Of course I did. And George Lutz, Art Bell was like saying, okay, well, you both took a polygraph test. They both passed, by the way, with two different polygraph test people. I don't know what they're called. Techs, whatever. And experts. They supposedly got the experts. But again, anybody can be bought with money, so, you know, back and forth, that doesn't really, you know, it's possible they passed a lie detector test. But again, what were they saying? Is what they said happened facts, that things did happen in this house, and that everything else got blown out of proportion when the Hollywood hit it. George, through interviews, will tell you, you know, yes, there were flies. It wasn't 1,000 flies. Okay, 6 people have been killed in the house. There's still blood on the walls. There's still blood. Yeah, it's November, but I can tell you that kind of stench is going to draw stuff. I can't, say whether they were there or not. I don't know. But is it possible for something unearthly to come and portray itself as something else? We know demons can pretend to be little kids and animals and all kinds of things. I'm not saying any of this isn't possible. I'm saying, did it happen in this house that night or that 28 days? That's what I'm saying. If you listen to Alexandra Holzer, which throughout interviews over the 50 years back and forth talking about her dad and stuff like that, there's a lot of different stuff being said, and I don't want to misquote her. What she did say is something I absolutely agree with, that 6 people dying in a house is going to leave some bad energy. Donny and I both said, and I believe Steve agreed with this, and so did Sandy at one point, when I said, it's very possible, think about all that stuff in the house, okay? They were there 9 years. That kind of abuse is going to draw negative entities. And you get, if there wasn't an influence there, it didn't even have to be an influence. It's still going to draw negative stuff, negative earthbound spirits, other negative things, other things that may never, like elementals and things like that feed off of negative energy. I would be shocked if something wasn't in that house. And if they were, they certainly got a buffet that night, because somebody shot those people, whether it was Dawn or Ronnie or Bobby or all 3 of them. Those people died, and those lives were forever changed, and those things would stay there to feed on that energy for as long as they could get fed. And we know, at least in my opinion at this point, I am firm on the belief that when I go to battlefields and things like that, there are things there that do not want these ghosts crossed. They'll fight you for them because they're living and literally living off of the suffering and the turmoil and the pain of these dead soldiers. That can also happen in a house. That's your scary truth. That's what I mean by truth is stranger than fiction. You don't need to add all this BS. That's where I'm at there.
Can
Okay,
I
Donnie? Go ahead.
Can I offer an alternative possibility?
Yes.
What if it was the Lutzes themselves who caused the haunting? And what if it wasn't the house that was haunted? What if it was the Lutzes?
It's very
'Cause
possible. It could have
Kathy
been the
was
DeFeos.
very, very heavy into like witchcraft and transcendental meditation.
And the kids
she
will
was
tell you
all
that
about
too.
that woo. And she was probably got into that house and tried to do some
They were both-
experimentations,
They were both into it. The kids will tell you that. That's one of the things that, and again, I won't speak for the young men, Chris, and apparently I'm going to go meet one of them, so I can't wait. But the Chris is a little less intense. He's mad, when you hear him. Danny is extremely intense. Just looking at you, he's just intense. And he says that he tried to kill George, that he did dislike George. He never called him dad. He had a dad. Quarantino, their father was alive. They were just divorced, and he had his things with George, and he never called him dad, and that was one of the things that pissed him off the most about the book. It was like, no, that's not how it was. And he says George was the one that was doing a lot of the transcendental meditations and things like that, and calling in and naming different demons and things like that, and all this other stuff. So again, you got to take a little bit from everybody and go, where's the truth in here?
And
But
that's
what he says.
And they also found like a full-on spell book that Kathy Lutz had that she left in the house called "In the Name of the Devil," which was written in like the 1500s.
Yeah.
And a lot of their account matches up very similarly to what is written about in the book. It was about like a book of like witches from the perspective of like the Inquisitors, but they kept record of all the spells that they did. And they described them, and then they described like the effects of the spells. And according to Rick Osuna, a lot of what is written about in the original Amityville Horror book was actually ripped from this book that Kathy Lutz had in her possession.
And in some cases, I would say, that's possible. But then again, think about this.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and I got all kinds of stuff here. Ghosts, End of Days, Sylvia Brown. I got Ghosts I've Met, Hans Holzer. I mean, the whole thing is all, I got Ghosts and Spirits, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I mean, there's books all over the place. I had little gargoyles in my garden, tiny little cute gargoyles in my garden and stuff like that. If somebody was not used to that and didn't know me and came into my house, they could say, oh, okay, that's what it is. It's this, and she's got a stack of skulls, and she's got some other kind of weird stuff. And people make their own assumptions by reading into these things. I tend to lean more towards what the kids were saying, and one of the things the kids said that was a horror, and I've heard this from multiple people, that one of the nights the Lutzes actually acted like drill sergeants with wooden spoons and shit and made the kids do all kinds of things, were beating the kids and everything else. And this was like 2 nights or a night before, not the night before they left, but real close to that night, where they were just really, supposedly, their personalities were so wide open, abusive. So again, I wonder, is that an influence from something that was never human, or is it an influence from, say, the dead Ron Sr., who I think would have, if he was stuck there in that house, I don't think he would have crossed. I mean, I'm just guessing here. I mean, you know what I mean? And I think it's possible that he probably hey, I've got some new stuff now. I might be dead, but maybe I can influence this and, hurt kids. Like you'll hear the famous thing about how the window slammed down on Chris's hand. I'm sorry, excuse me, Danny. Danny's the oldest one. Yeah, on his hand, and he tells in my Amityville Horror, it's something that's not in the book, it's not in the movie. He says that when that window slammed down on his hands, and he shows his hand, and he says his pinky is still screwed up. Well, so was mine, but again, that doesn't prove anything. However, he said they did not take him to the hospital, that he went into the kitchen. Somebody went to go check something. He's there with his mom. When his mom's getting ice, he said a spirit walked into the kitchen and sat down. It was like a little nook, like a little, what do you call when you have like this little breakfast nook thing? And it came and walked in and sat right across from a black mass. And I'm thinking, first of all, I never heard about it before. He tells the story. I can't say whether it's true or not. But why couldn't that have been Ron DeFeo Sr.? Enjoying the pain, enjoying what he caused. He loved to do it in life. I'm just throwing it out there. I have no clue. But you'll hear that if you watch my Amityville Horror. Mm-hmm. There you go. You with me, Donnie?
Yep.
So far? Yep. I had never heard that one. That was new on me, you know, on that story. And then you hear Miss Kaylin will come in here, and she throws another idea into the whole thing. It's coming up. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy story, I swear to God.
Return.
We did not move in and move out as the same family. All of us were quite frightened by the time we left, and knew of no fear when we moved in. And the fear alone was something that changed all of us.
The Lutzes moved in with Kathy's mother, and George took steps to get the house investigated.
I had contacted a fellow by the name of Kaplan, who had represented himself as a parapsychologist. Come to find out he's a vampirologist, and that was supposed to give him credibility, which it didn't with me.
My husband did tell him that we don't charge you anything, but we are a public service organization, and if we find something backing what you say is there, we will tell the public what we found. And if we find that there isn't anything, we'll tell the public that. And if we find that you're putting us on and this is a hoax, we'll also tell them that.
3 days later, George Lutz contacted Kaplan again.
He was very upset by some quote that my husband had said in the newspaper saying that he would be investigating. And he said, I told you I didn't want any publicity, and, I'm going to have to now postpone your investigation for at least a couple of weeks because we didn't want any publicity about this.
I remember this part
and
now.
My husband found out the next day that was the same day that Lutz and his wife had given this press conference in the morning. So in the morning he's giving
I
a
remember
press
this part
conference,
now.
and in the evening he's telling us he's canceling our investigation because he doesn't want the publicity.
Yeah,
In an
I remember this part
extraordinary
now.
twist, this press conference was organized by none other than William Weber, Ronald DeFeo's defense attorney. Weber was now representing DeFeo in the appeal against his earlier conviction. Seemingly, he and the Lutzes had made contact in the immediate aftermath of their leaving the house.
Weber called a press conference with Newsday and told us that Newsday demanded that we be there.
Again, a bell went off with my husband. Why is William Weber, the defense attorney for the mass murderer Ronald DeFeo, now representing this gentleman Lutz, who had moved into the house afterwards, and what's the connection there?
I was approached by a Paul Hoffman, who at the time was a freelance writer for the news, and indicated that the Lutzes would like to meet with me. And I said, I too would like to meet with them because coincidentally I had been given an oral commitment that we would get a large advance for a book and a movie.
Weber never, in those first meetings, ever brought up the idea of that. He was very keen on helping his client get psychological help. At least that's what we were led to believe. We felt that what happened to us was an indication of what quite possibly could have also affected him.
At one particular meeting, Weber claims he revealed some key details of the DeFeo crime, details that were to be of vital significance in the Lutzes' subsequent story.
We were there from about 9 or 10 in the evening to 3 in the morning, drinking wine. And I can't tell you how many bottles of wine we had, but it was many. I had photographs of the crime scene, and based upon the photographs and other facts that I had related, we developed what ultimately turned out to be part of the Lutz's version of the possession aspect of the case.
The Lutzes let me listen to a tape recording that they had made with William Weber. And in fact, George Lutz, before playing the tape, prefaced his remarks to me and said, I'm not particularly proud of this.
For instance, I showed them pictures of the blackish, greenish fingerprint powder that was all over the house, put there by the police who were looking for fingerprints. And they said, wow, look, there's the slime coming from the doors. We had pictures of Dawn's third-floor bedroom that had dead flies all over it. Well, they took Dawn's room and they had flies flying around all the time. They supplemented the facts that I was telling them about the case, and it all appeared in their book.
I think when they...
I'm sorry, real quick. And Ed, I wanted to answer that about here, real quick, because this is important. I heard somewhere that they couldn't afford to live in the house anyone else. The house was listed at $80,000. I looked at the printouts of everything. It should have been more like 140, 130, at that time. So it was a deep discount. Now, there's a whole line of stuff that they went through to get this. George had a house, Kathy had a house. They sold Kathy's house, moved in with George. This is one of the things the kids were really upset about. And they talk a lot about it in their interviews. And he basically was renting a spot for his boat. He had a motorcycle. He drove a Harley, which is one of the things the little kids liked a lot. And then they sold his house and they combined the money on that, and they give the whole list out. You'll hear that, and like I said, multiple interviews, and definitely in Shattered Hopes, they get real deep into that. Now, here it is. Keep in mind, guys, they were in there 28 days. So when you hear people tell you that it could not be true, and the reason they did this is because they couldn't afford the house, it was basically they had the money to pay for it. They were consolidating a lot of different things that they were renting, like a boat slip here and this over here, and storage and an office. All of these things were now going to be combined in this one house that saved him a lot of money. They were only in the house 28 days. That's not long enough to get behind on anything. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if people tell you, oh, they did it because they couldn't afford the house, you got to throw that out. There's other things that are, I think, personally, in my opinion, more telling. But at that point, 28 days, and Laura DeFeo, in her wonderful interviews that she does, actually states that fact too. They just weren't in there long enough to be behind. Maybe they felt like they made a mistake or something like that. All of that's true. It could be possible. But as far as the money part, I don't think that played in there. But again, that's just some information, okay? But I have heard that myself many a time, so I thought we'd say something on it.
Sobered up, or the cold light of day, they felt, maybe this didn't feel right to them. But in this tape, William Weber already had, he was purporting to say, hey, we can get movies, books, film rights. He was already talking about percentages and cutting deals.
He was in the process of putting together some kind of book and movie contract with DeFeo, and he sent a contract to our house that included paying DeFeo some 5% of whatever the proceeds were. So Weber was involved in actually trying to pay DeFeo for the murders. At that point, we broke off all contact with William Weber.
They just disappeared off the face of Long Island after that.
With the Lutzes underground, interest in the Amityville horror story was building, and New York TV station Channel 5 were determined to get the scoop.
I got in touch with George Lutz and said, your family needs help, because they were clearly terrified.
Laura called in a celebrated pair of psychic investigators based in Connecticut, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
The type of work that we do is investigation into the paranormal, the supernatural, the preternatural, from haunting phenomena caused by human spirits or through poltergeist activity or the demonic inhuman hauntings. We've worked on numerous possession cases and exorcisms, and Warner Brothers has the rights to our life.
Scariest shit I ever heard in my life. Warner Brothers has the rights to our life. What does that tell you guys? What does that mean to you? I know what it meant to me. It sent off all kinds of things, but first of all, I thought it was creepy as hell. Because can you imagine that? And how many movies is Warner... Just think about it. It's weird, right?
George Lutz met us at the edge of the property. He did not even want to step foot onto the grounds.
It was a horribly foreboding type of a feeling throughout the whole house. You knew that this house was infested by something other than human spirits. That's for sure. That was more than obvious.
Ew, spider again. I'm freaking myself out now. Oh. All right. Well, there they are.
There they are.
There they are. And like I said, that is like one of the creepiest things I ever heard. And I just, you know what I don't know. I don't even know why. It just seems to me that, you know, Warner Brothers has the rights to our lives and all our stories, all our books, all our stuff, you know, they're going to put out there. I don't know. That's just creepy. So, Donnie, you wanted to finish this whole thing up by touching on, I have no idea what he said because I didn't read the book, on the Warrens. And again, I wasn't there. I don't know them. Al Santoriga, he really likes them. Laura DeFeo herself said that they were very sweet. I got to give you both sides and in the middle here because you're deciding this. She said they were very sweet. They only asked for gas and tolls. That, and I believe I told you this last week, that Hans Holzer did want to be paid. He wanted to have coverage. I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was a huge amount. I have no clue how much it was. But they said he wasn't available anyway, so that's not why they didn't pick him. He just wasn't available to come right away the night they needed him to. And the Warrens were. And that's where they went from that. Donnie, what did you want to say? We've got about 10-15 minutes left. What did, in his opinion, what did Rick say about them? Because I know you said that he had some opinions.
He didn't like them, but I also can see the fact that a lot of his, I guess, harsh judgment on them was somewhat like biased.
Okay.
Because in his wording, he would call them, I remember when he introduces them as so-called psychics.
Okay.
So-called demonologists, and he kept using those words, which means in my mind he's completely dismissing any kind of personal spiritual encounter that they may have had, right? Because he's just implying that they're total fakers. And the one big problem he had with the Warrens was that after this whole experience with Amityville, their careers as public figures skyrocketed. They started attending lectures and actually publishing books. Their notoriety and their fame grew, and Amityville was kind of their launching point. So he kind of saw them as basically just profiteering off that whole situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was there anything that they stated that happened in the house right now we're just talking about Rick Osuna and his opinion from the book. Was there anything specific that he said, they said this and I can prove that didn't happen? Or
yeah, there were a few things. He wrote like a small list of them.
Okay, go ahead.
I actually have it open in the book.
Because this is good information for you guys to put in your file, your Amityville file. You know what I'm saying?
Actually, like one of the things he criticized was like during that televised seance, he was talking about how Lorraine Warren was sitting on the bed in the master bedroom and saying that she was picking up all this energy because that was the bed of Ron DeFeo.
Okay.
But then like the author was like, I know for a fact that that's not Ron DeFeo's bed because they moved that out of the house when they were murdered.
Spot on. And I can back you on that because this poor guy's got to have a name. Ryan Kevin Bacon. That did the Shattered Hopes.
Yeah.
He shows the picture that they're sitting in they're stating that they're sitting in the king size queen whatever bed, and it's totally different. The backboard, the headboard, everything is different. He said, no, that's not even true. And I think Ryan had a little bit of that feeling too. And I know a lot of people do. I really respect Zoriah Ascath. And he stated, without a doubt, he says, I don't look into anything that the Warrens were involved in. There's multiple letters, signed letters. They're not notarized, but they are signed letters, and that is on the AmityvilleMurders.com of different people that dealt with the Warrens with this case or something else. And they said, well, Ed leaned in and said such and such, which made me go, I'm done. Or what, and you can read those for yourself.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying she very well may have abilities. Ed might very well have some stuff in that category. I can't say one way or the other. I've never met them, but I do believe that they have had multiple people say that they exaggerated or made stuff up. Now we know that in The Conjuring. We know that, the whole thing that might have happened at The Conjuring. Why do you got to make up that the lady was a witch? Why do you got to make up this whole big story? If you're doing Annabelle, this is a Raggedy Ann doll. Why does this Annabelle doll look like this creepy shit? And you've got all this other stuff, and then you've got the kids that grow up and come out and start talking about this happening. We stayed in the house 25 years, but it was hell every minute. I don't get it. I don't get it.
And if I could be a bit critical of Rick Osuna myself, he actually, if I have to analyze his opinion on the Warrens, I would say you've got one quick little logic flaw there.
Okay.
And his main reason for not liking the Warrens was because they increased so much in fame after Amityville But just because that did happen, correlation does not mean causation. That does not mean they went to Amityville with the intention of launching their careers.
This is true.
And he's implying that they did, and therefore that's why he thinks that all their experiences were fake. But again, he's relying on the whole correlation causation thing.
Right.
Right. Just because they became more successful does not mean that that was their goal.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely great observation, Donnie, and I feel the same way. And that's how I feel about this whole case up until this point.
Yeah.
It's just like, because the window didn't shatter doesn't mean it wasn't banging. The kids said that it did. Mm-hmm. You know, again, I've got 2 older adult males now that will tell you how their lives were, and I feel my heart breaks because they went through a different kind of horror after the fact.
Yeah.
You know, growing up through that, and then I've heard them say, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I don't want any part of it. Yet they keep giving interviews and doing documentaries and showing up at Gettysburg Bashes and things like that. I cannot speak for these people. I can tell you they went through something. What that was, I do not know.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that the claims in that house, and why I can say this is because I've studied that shit for 50 years now.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in that book that says that it happened that couldn't happen. That's where I'm sitting. Because I needed to know if it could. And that book made me go look and go study each thing. It made me look into, can it reach and can it keep it continually affecting the priest? Could there have been something there that was feeding off of the abuse and the anger and the devastation? If you don't think that there's a lot of what I call loosh, that negative energy that they live off of, like think again, like Harry Potter and those black things that were sucking energy out of people, 10,000 other things, that exists. It exists, and it could have been something that was there that told the priest, get out. It could have been.
It could have been something Kathy Lutz summoned with that damn book.
It darn could well be.
Yeah.
It darn could well be. But something was going on before it. And again, I agree with just this statement that Alexander Holzer said. You can't have that kind of thing happen on a property, in a household, and not have that energy affect that property. Now, Lorraine would come back later and say that the reason there was nothing else is because we had the house exorcised. Then you've got the whole thing from the Catholic Church and all the priests, which I listened to ad nauseum, talking about this case that, some of them were there, that said a house cannot be possessed, only people can be. And I agree with that. I think a land can be cursed. I think a land can be sour. I think it can be just rotten. And a bad place for people to live. That goes back Native American cultures, many tribal cultures. We do not know.
Mm-hmm.
I am saying at this point, there's nothing that they said that happened in that house from the missing money before the wedding. It was like $1,200, and they couldn't pay the caterers. It was right there in his pocket, and then it was gone. Apportation. It's possible. It would cause a lot of chaos in the family and cause problems if something was there to do that. It doesn't have to be unearthly. It could be an earthbound human spirit could have done that. I don't think it all happened. I think a lot of this was made up. I know a lot of it was exaggerated. But at this point in time, until you listen to what the boys are saying, and you're listening to how that matches up, and they're really not in agreement in a lot of ways. I've never seen them both together speaking on this, only separate, So I have to go that route and say, okay, that makes a little sense. But then again, they say, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want any, and then they keep coming out. The only one that you haven't heard a peep from is Missy. She was 5 at the time. And Laura DiDio says the best thing. She's like, she was 5. You know, I remember things from when I was 5, but the young girl knew enough to say, I'm done with this, and she's not in any interview, she doesn't have a movie, she doesn't have a documentary, and you don't hear a word from her. That's somebody who doesn't want a part of this. That's somebody who doesn't want to remember, doesn't want to go back over, it was done. I don't know what else to say other than the fact that we're still trying to dig and pull the facts from the fiction. But I'm going to say what Steve said 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. Something happened in that house. Whether it's earthbound spirits, the energy from such a tragic thing. Here's something you want to take with you till tomorrow night. They asked each man, now adults, did they ever tell you what happened in that house? Here's Danny's version is, we were still in the car. George came out. Kathy was behind a mom, whatever he called mom, mommy, one of them, and said, listen, guys, some things kind of happened here. And he told them kind of what happened. Some people died here. How do you guys feel about that? 9, 7, and 5. How many 5 and 7-year-olds do you know that could wrap their head around the tragedy that happened in that house? So they both say that. The youngest one said, I think I remember something about that because when I was in the basement, they had a finished basement. And he said, when I was in the basement, I remember looking up at my mom and saying, is this where they kept the bodies? Which is creepy. But he remembers saying that, so he said, I must have been told right before that. George Lutz says, we discussed it as a family, and everybody was okay with it. They were 9, 7, and 5. How can they be okay with it? They didn't even understand. They didn't understand.
Yeah.
And then to the caveat of it, and you'll be sleeping in the beds they got shot in. Not the mattresses, but the frames and the headboards and a lot of the furniture. To me, I think this is irresponsible parenting. I think they got caught up in the luxury of the whole thing. It was perfect. It's what they wanted. And I believe in reality, they kind of this is going to be great. We don't care that people got shot to death here. And didn't even think about it. If that's the case. If it's something like Donny said that Rick has alluded to, that it's possible that they knew, that it's possible they jumped on that house. They did look at a lot of houses. There was a couple of realtors and earlier things that said, yeah, I took them to show them this, and this was like a last minute thing. There's a lot of that. So we just got to basically, tomorrow night, go over what they said happened in the house. Donny, are you going to finish the second half? What do you think? You think you can handle it, or do you not want the visuals?
Oh, tomorrow night?
Are you going to watch the rest of the movie and give us your opinion, or are you done?
It depends on if I'm here in North Carolina tomorrow night or if I'm back in Maryland, because I might be too busy driving.
Totally understood.
Yeah.
And you don't have to. I mean, if
or actually, maybe I could listen to it in my car as I drive. I was thinking about doing that too.
Yeah, but try not to look at it while you drive, because that would be dangerous, and we don't want.
Oh no, I'm good with that.
Yeah, but so that way you'd get the thing. But basically, the things that they claimed that happened in the house, the priest is the big thing. Again, that was a part of the book that really got to me because of the reach, and I really started studying these things. That's what kicked me off there, because that disturbed the hell out of me. There's something else a lot of people forget, that Kathy also had an aunt who was a nun who came to the house and supposedly got sick and had to leave. She left immediately. I can't explain that. If it's true, she did have a, Laura talks about it, Laura DeDeo talks about it, that she did in fact have an aunt who was a nun.
That is new information to me.
Yeah, and said that she went there to visit Kathy, and she got sick. She got sick right away. We're going to bring up what happened the night that Lorraine and Ed Warren were there. They brought friends. They brought people that they knew. Laura DeDeo was there. She was 20. What's his name? Marvin Scott which is another journalist, is still involved today, and also one of the ones who kept his integrity throughout. He was very staunch, though, because he looked, I remember at one point in time, he looked at Laura DeFeo and goes, we don't have it. Like, they were going for that exorcist moment. Like, what, that's what he was going after. He was, like, in charge, and she was a cub reporter kind of thing. I guess they still called him that. But there were things that happened that night. And she, they're going to tell you about that. And, it's basically, there's not one thing about this case that you can look at and go, okay, that convinced me. As far as except the dog, little things like that you just know the dog's not lying, right? And so little things like that. But you guys are going to ultimately that's my whole goal with this. I mean, this has been a lot of research. This has been, I am absolutely sickened at how many interviews, how many shows, how many books and read documents and everything else. Because, again, why does this mean so much? Because it's 50 freaking years. And this is the one that started me on it. And people they dispel it and say that this can't happen. And then the house next door, something's really happened, and nobody believes them either. This is like the victim thing that nobody believes, any of the people. So you guys are going to decide, but so many things like, there's collaboration on the fact that his hygiene went down, that he couldn't get warm, that he stopped taking showers, he stopped going to the office, all of these different things. So that's not disputed. He would wake up in the middle of the night and hear a marching band. This makes no sense to me, but heard a marching band, and he'd go, and all of the furniture would be moved out of the living room, and the rugs would be rolled up. Again, makes no sense. The lion came to life and bit him. Kathy's face changed into an old woman. The levitations. Laura DeFeo actually added another one where the boys complained that they saw a dark figure in the room that would stand at the foot of their bed. Again, doesn't have to be. It could have been one of the DeFeos that died, that were lost. They had the young couple that got married, where they lost the money, and they had to come up with money to pay the caterer. They came and stayed right after they got back from their honeymoon, and I believe it was Kathy's brother that got married. I think. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, a young couple just got married. They were staying over their house we're going to stay for a couple days. And they slept upstairs in what would have been the DeFeo boys' room. The girl knew nothing about anything, the house or anything else, as far as I know, even the DeFeos, because they weren't from here. Or there, excuse me. And her young husband didn't want to tell her anything about it and scare her. She woke up in the middle of the night and said there was a young boy there trying to talk to her and said he needed help. That was her. She wasn't any part of this as far as I know. And nobody has disputed that. And she got up and they left. And George was trying to tell her, oh, you were just dreaming or anything else. She goes, no, he was standing right here and he was talking to me. Why couldn't that be one of the DeFeo boys? So there you go. And you also have that picture that Steve says gives him the creeps. That hasn't really been disputed as far as I know.
Oh, and that picture. Oh,
Has it been disputed? Does Rick tear that up?
He tries, but I'm not convinced by Rick's argument. He tries.
He tries. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have seen people look at that and say it's a young kid wearing glasses because you can see the frames and the reflection. I don't know. The first time I saw that picture, it gave me the creeps. I do have, I believe, on an interview, possibly in this one, where George Lutz said that there was the reporter that was looking through that because they had help back at Channel 5. They were going over all the pictures, that she was pregnant, and when she came across it, when she touched the picture, the baby would kick and all this other stuff. So, again, I have zero evidence of that. But there you go. You know what? I think so. Gray. I really do, Lindsay. I think so. There's something else in that house. And again, I don't know who
Yeah,
said what.
Rick Asuna was trying to tear up that picture, but the more I read it, I was like, yeah, I'm not buying what you're laying down. I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah.
I like your other stuff. I like your research, but in this case, nah. I reserve my right to disagree.
You got to give absolutely, and you
Yeah.
got to give them credit for how much they really dug and everything else. And Ryan, I guess, was trying to do this whole thing, and like I said, they dropped Shattered Hopes about 10 years ago, and then you didn't see anything. If you go back over his YouTube thing, you didn't see anything for a while, and he was trying to do something, when I get to 5,000 or something, he said, I'll drop the interviews and the second part of whatever the interview was with Butch DeFeo in jail or something like that. And then he just started dropping stuff about 4 months ago. So I can't tell you that. I don't know if he was like a cease and desist or he got in trouble. I know everybody's suing everybody in this, by the way, all at the same time. All over.
One of the things you learn about George Lutz, he liked to file lawsuits and send out cease and desist letters like quite frequently. Sort of like some people in the community who like to do that. I'm not going to name names.
And that's just the way it is. So all I'm trying to do right now is keep it real. Again, fact from fiction. We're trying to dig through all this murky mess and see, what was up, because to just look at the whole thing and pat and say it's a hoax from beginning to end, I don't think that's true. And just to say from beginning to end everything in between is true, again, with all these people involved in this, But where's the truth? Did something happen in this house? I would say yes. 6 people died. And Donnie, I asked you this afternoon if they came up with any information on the property beforehand. It had only really owned 2 people, like 1925 to something, and then somebody, and that was it. It was like 2
there wasn't
cents.
much. There wasn't much in terms of like previous
Because
history on the house itself.
Kathy Lutz did say in another interview that she dug in and that there were 2 suicides on the property. And somebody killed themselves off the dock or something like that, hung themselves in the boathouse or some kind of thing. I don't want to misquote her, but she did say 2 people committed suicide on that property and somebody else near to the property did something. You got Hans Holzer saying it's a pissed off Indian, which you will see tomorrow night, a little bit of that and a little bit of Ethel Myers in her trance. You'll hear the audio from it and you'll get a little bit more of that. You can discern for yourself what you think. I dug Ethel Myers. I grew up listening to that stuff, and I don't think she had any reason to lie. But again, like Donnie said, none of these things are mutually exclusive, because one happened doesn't mean another one couldn't have happened, another incident or whatever. And because one is a hoax doesn't mean the other one can't be true. So we're still digging and we're still looking, and you guys are going to decide. And I don't know where you are at this point, but again, anytime you say something just didn't happen and there's no way it could happen, that's wrong, because all of these incidents could, including the pig with the red eyes. I'm not saying it did. I'm saying it could. So that's where we are. And we might very well, Donnie, get to the end of tomorrow night and go, I don't know it. I know so much more than I did when I started, and I still don't know. And that's just fine. That's just fine. But let's not throw out everybody's story in the paranormal. Let's not make people who have become harmed by the paranormal or scared or have had to move or have had real trauma. I mean, we know all that's true. And let's not.
Some of the people in the chat have probably gone through that themselves.
Absolutely, including myself, you know. And, we know that these things can be true, So there you go. Again, I think the dark figure could very well be Ron DeFeo, and he would be. Again, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he made his. I don't want to say he made his bed. That's terrible. I keep saying bad things. I don't mean to. I don't.
Ron DeFeo was a piece of human garbage.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about him.
Yeah. And I don't think he'd want to cross. And in my experience, those people hold back. Now, if they did cleanse that house that could have helped them move on. I believe you're going to hear from one of the other mediums who rarely gets any play on this, that she saw a little girl in the window and she went to her and crossed her over. And it sounds to me like she is describing Allison, the 14-year-old. I think she was 14, was she not?
I think
very
so.
close, between
I think
12 and
so.
14.
Yeah.
And she crossed her over. So there were, in her mind, and she didn't say anything else about anything else that I know of, but she said she found that one girl when she arrived there.
Yeah.
So, and hooded figures and something else she saw too, and she was like, okay, and she blocked that. But I'll let her tell you that, and you guys decide. But right now, Donnie, I'm like, you know.
Can I point out one positive actually about this whole
Sure,
thing?
please do.
The original Amityville, I guess, book or the movie was a lot of people's first introduction into the paranormal world. That sparked a lot of people's interest, and it kind of led people down the road to eventually, get involved in the paranormal, right? Because that was like the first, I would say, the first modern American paranormal story that went viral for that time. And it sparked a lot of people's interest. And even though that story may or may not be legit, a lot of people, because of that story, went on into developing, their passion and curiosity. And I think it led a lot of people to this community. So, I mean, that's one, I guess, positive.
Good night, Sebastian. It makes a lot of sense what you just said. This is the deal. Everybody's got their own beliefs. We were talking about Hans Holzer said there wasn't this or this. This is again, what I have learned, what people who are wiser than I will ever be, and much more in-tuned abilities have told me, and I have collected it together in this great big ball of information that I've been trying to collect and all this data for 50 years. One thing I stand firm on at this point is once you cross over and you go through whatever it is you're going through there, I believe you have help. Okay? I believe that there is some type of a chance that you get sometimes, if you're still earthbound or caught in that in-between, sometimes you get a chance to come back and help others, and that helps your energy. It's all about energy. We know people can get stuck in the in-between. I've had loved ones stuck. I've had to send people in to get them. I've helped other people go in and get people. Okay? And I can tell you, that once you cross and you start getting that information, that what really, really matters is what did we learn here? Could we have done better? How did my action affect this person? And what did it cause them to do? How did it affect them? Ripples in a pond. You're accountable. I personally believe you judge yourself. I believe there are spirit guides and higher ascended beings that help us with this, and we are all one from the same energy. So when you get there and you just go, oh my gosh, it is all connected. Oh my gosh, I could have done better here. I had no idea that me cussing out that server, that she went home and beat her child or got in a fight with her husband and he hit her, or they got a divorce. Everything has reaction. And energy affects energy, positive and negative. So we can put names on anything you want. We're not going to argue religion and everything else. What I like to stay in is that we're all connected. We're all from the same source pool. And I guarantee you what I do is going to affect you and you and you and you, and that we're all accountable, and we're here to learn how to be better human beings. And I believe our souls cross and we have a chance to come back and maybe do it again or learn more. I can't explain that. So I wouldn't get so hung up on labels and everything else, because there is ultimate good and ultimate evil. And the ultimate evil is just the absence of anything good. So if you look at it that way, you won't get so caught up in names and this and everything else. And the things that exist in this world, if you look at it in the right way, are more miraculous and more wonderful than we could ever imagine. I watched a hummingbird for 15 minutes the other day. It was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. Tiny little baby that was eating flowers that I put there that my son gave me for Mother's Day. That to me was miraculous. Life, as Grandpa Walton says, life is hard work and love, and a series of beautiful moments put together with a lot of nothing in between. You're in charge of how many beautiful moments you stop and look at. You are in charge of how your vantage point sees things. You are in charge in how you react to those things. So think positive and understand in the paranormal that there is so much wonder. And there's a lot more wonder and miracle than there is this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But because one thing isn't true doesn't mean the whole thing didn't happen. These are lives. And some of these children are still alive. These young men, this young girl. And it's affected them, and it's affected a lot of other people. And I'm sure people have picked sides. I'm still right in the middle, and I don't really know which way I'm going to lean. I don't want to be a professional fence sitter. I'm not normally that kind. I don't know where you guys are, but that's my spiel. That's where I am, and I can honestly tell you that this has affected me for 6 weeks. You know, but I'm digging. I'm trying to get the truth out, and so is Donny. And I'm so grateful to have you, Donny. Thank you again for your research. Thank you for your opinions, your insight, and your vantage point, because you got me to think of a couple things differently too, and go, you know. And I hope we've done that for you guys. I mean, this is our third night. We've got probably 9 hours, 10 hours of playtime in this, that we've all been talking about it. So let's look at it that way and see what's up. It's not about who's afraid of who or who believes in what, or we're not here to label people with religions and anything else. Right now in this chat, we are one. We are here to help each other. So if anybody tonight is in pain, anybody is suffering with grief, anybody is scared or worried or feels alone, tonight you're not alone. We're all here with you, and we send you good energy and love. We, cleanse this whole episode with light and love and, just positive golden energy. Let it flow through. Send anybody who needs healing. Again, you're not alone. This is our family. This is one of the best damn chats out there. And I'm telling you, I always feel better when we get together. And I always love how everybody in the chat gets along, and we don't attack each other and, and everything else. We're here to guide each other along and ask questions and look for answers. And sometimes we're not going to get the answers. But I'd want to share one more thing with you. I thought it was really cool. When I was really sick and I was just saying, I called Donny. I said, Donny, I can't even look at anything right now. I need a couple days to cleanse and get all this out, and then I'll come back and I'll jump in again. I appreciate him taking that time. He's been a wonderful friend throughout this. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, something popped up in my recommendations in my YouTube, and I took a look at it. And what it was a full movie, and I highly recommend it. Now, it's 1980, so if you like big hair and lots of odd, like red leather and black leather stuff, it was really weird. 80s were so strange, right? But the movie is called The Heavenly Kid. It's free on YouTube. I highly recommend you watch it. And it's, it's not a blockbuster, but the storyline is correct. And a young man, I won't give you the whole thing, but a young man is like a 50s greaser, or a drag strip. We're drag stripping, and he goes off the cliff. And sometime in his afterlife, he's given the chance to come back and help somebody so he can move up higher. I highly recommend it. It's one of those movies that kind of gets it right. And the moral of the story at the end is exactly what I just told you guys, and it popped up when I was talking to Donnie and talking about I need some some cleansing stuff and everything else, and it pops up. And I watched it, and I'm glad I did, and I hope you will too. Like I said, it's free. Go watch it and kind of come out of this stuff a little bit and get focused back on the whole reason we're here. And the whole reason we're here tonight is just to try to clear up some of the BS in this. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tomorrow night we'll be back to finish up. Donnie will be with me. We do blessings to Steve and his endeavor, all the technical stuff he's doing. Let's give him the time to get it together because he's got some really great things planned. Him and Sandy and Bill and everybody, and you're going to be so excited about it. So we can try to get through one night without him. And like I said, I just wanted you guys to understand if I didn't put him on the thing, because I don't want to advertise him being here and having a lot of his fans here and then he's not here and people get disappointed.
And then they're stuck looking at my face and they'll be like, oh damn, who the hell is this guy? I was expecting Steve Stockton.
They want Steve and they get us, right?
Yeah.
That's a totally different thing. So we love him. We'd like to send him lots of love and energy, and I'd send lots of love and energy to you guys. Be kind to each other. Susan, thank you for all your constant lovely comments. Thank you to everybody that's come in on the YouTube and put other comments under there. I'm getting really lovely comments from people, new people. We are up to I think it's like 1380 is our subs. So please share it out if you can. Give it a thumbs up on the way out. And I wanted to say tonight's music, I wanted to give credit. I think I made a banner for that and I almost forgot to do it. Oh, right here. Tonight's music is the way it's been through this whole series has been Spirit of Fire by Jesse Gallagher, and you can find that on YouTube audio library, but absolutely love the song. I think I did a much better job. I'm sorry, I was so distracted last weekend and so sick that I made the music too louder and I forgot to go back and change it. I apologize. Not a professional. I'm just a little redhead from Jersey trying to have a podcast. So there we go. And maybe tomorrow night I can remember that poor guy's name. I had it written down and everything and I lost it. I guess we're not supposed to know it, but so we thank
I think Kevin Bacon it is.
Ryan, Kevin Bacon, and Rick Asuna for all their details. Okay, so there you go. Jose, thank you so much. Sapphire Elf for coming in. Thank you. And Edna, get better, my love.
Yeah.
We love you, love you, love you. Good energy. There you go. We love you. And Vixen Doe, everybody in here. Ted, I'm glad to see you back. Nightmare, welcome. We are out of here, Donnie. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this was a good one.
Great job, man.
Yeah,
great job. I'm
You
loving
too.
this. I love how we don't talk about it ahead of time. We just give like a loose outline, and you just come and hit me with all this, and I'm like, whoa, that matches this.
And then for
in real
a
time.
little behind the scenes view, guys, when Cisco and I are talking one on one on the phone, a lot of times we're like, save it for the podcast. Save it for the podcast.
Yep. We just do like a brief outline, and I go, okay, I've got this, and we're going to start there, so you can talk about the Warrens. And I had no idea. But how about that museum thing they got down there? I mean, how creepy is that? I wouldn't want to keep all that crap. What is? I don't get it. I don't get it. It's just creepy to me. So, to each his own, right?
Yeah.
Love you, man. Thank you so much for being a good friend and so darn good at this research and really discerning stuff. I love that. And thank you guys, everybody in the chat. I think we're out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Sorry we kept you so late, but this is so much to put out there, man.
Yeah.
It really is. And see you tomorrow night, Don.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thanks again, my friend. All right. Here we go, guys. Good night, everybody. Make good choices and don't be like, what's his name? Hang on. The emu. Has everybody seen the emu who chose violence that day? It's been great. We'll try to have you some funny stuff tomorrow night, but make good choices. That's basically what it comes down to, and try to be kind. I love you guys. I think we are out. Good night, sweetie. Have a good one, everybody. See you tomorrow. Night.
All right. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Night, sweetie.